I know. The May 11th, 2023 special Wasilla City Council meeting is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, council, please put away cell phones. If you have personal business to attend to during the meeting, please move for a recess. If you are participating telephonically, please mute your phone unless speaking. Also, when speaking, please state your name for those streaming the meeting. As a reminder to all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly in the back of the council chambers above the clock. Madam Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Vlock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubio.
Here.
Councilmembers Graham and Johnson are absent and excused unless there's objection from the body. You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Colleen, would you lead us?
Yes, ma'am. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will stand as presented. We are on to public participation. Persons to be heard, 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing no one, public participation is closed. Madam Deputy Clerk, please read the next item of business.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item of business this evening, the fiscal year 2024 budget discussion and departmental presentations. This will be done in committee of the whole related to ordinance serial number 2323, providing for the adoption of the annual budget for fiscal year 2024 and appropriating funds to carry out said budget. Budget presentations are on the agenda in order of department.
Is there a motion to enter the committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor, I move we enter the committee of the whole.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
The motion has been made by Councilmember Vlock and seconded by Councilmember Sullivan Leonard. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, we are in the committee of the whole. And the first one up for budget is the museum. If you're doing paper, it is on page 122, and electronic is on page 138. And we will start with,
Madam Mayor?
yes.
For all the departments that are presenting, could we have them do a quick summary first before we go line item by line item, if that's okay with council?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for taking time out today, especially since we got to enjoy some sunshine. My name is Bethany Buckingham Follett. I'm the curator of the Wasilla Museum and Visitor Center and the Emergency Public Information Officer for the City of Wasilla. The accomplishments that we have completed this year, you can see on page 135 and 136 on the online. It's 120 and 121 in the form. A few of the items I'd like to bring out is that we actually did a lot of partnering this year for cost savings. We've worked with the Parks and Facilities Department for trash pickup in our town site. Since the move, our trash has gone down tremendously to pretty much a half a bag a day. That fits into our town site trash cans, which the parks picks up daily anyway. The only other large events that we have are the Old Town Autumn Fest or the Summer Block Party.
Stu Graham.
Thank you,
Have
Stu.
joined.
Thank you, Stu.
Which, again, the Parks Department during the summer, they do pick up daily anyway, so we have talked with them about supplying the trash pickup for us for those. So basically, we were able to take that out of our line items so that that could go to the Parks and Facilities for their trash. We also partnered with the library and the Friends of the Library this past year to bring up illustrating Alaska Illustrating Alaska, which was a large exhibit about 4 illustrators in Alaska who illustrate children's books. And it was a great partnership with the Friends of the Library and with the museum and the library. We did cross-programming with both of us, and we were able to not only get the large exhibit that was at the museum, we also got the pop-up exhibit that was at the library facility. So it increased the showing for that and drew traffic between both areas. We also received a grant from the Alaska State Museum and $7,400 for a 10-week intern. We were able to get housing donated, so all of that money went to the intern for their time. During the 10 weeks, they were able to scan over 500 photographs and create a pop-up exhibit for us at the museum that is picturing Wasilla. They took all of our historic photos and created different panels that people can come in and help us identify who these people are, what these activities are. It increases our information about the past of Wasilla pretty much over the last 100 years, actually 106 years now. And those pictures, those 500 pictures will change out, which allows people to come in and see different things. We have dressing up, which is one of them, which is about the parades and the different activities they had. So during the centennial celebration, they have photographs of that. We would not have been able to do that without the grant. It also saved time from our staff scanning, so that saved money for us to then incorporate and put into more training that we have, which I'll talk about shortly. We also a few years ago decided that staff will clean bathrooms and do those items because staff had to clean them when the cleaning contract was not available. We could only have the cleaning contract in for 2 days a week. We were open at that time 5 days a week, so staff still had to clean. So there was no point in having people come in when we still had to clean in between visitors. And some of our tourists are getting used to Alaska, we'll just put it that way. We also were able to have our staff go to digital preservation. These are skills that they're learning to put all of our items online, have more public access to our information, to the history, which then decreases the cost we need to hire out for people to do that. So we have that knowledge in-house. Same thing with the textile workshop that our staff was able to go to, so they can help house the collection that we have. So again, cost savings that way. With the budget that we have and how we were looking at this is our first real tourism season since COVID. So we tried to maintain what we had before. We're seeing there's a prediction that there's going to be an increase in tourism, and this is going to be our time to really see what visitors want, what locals want, and how next year's budget we can actually adapt to what those needs and requirements are. So this is kind of a static year for us. This gives us the chance to look at the 3 to 5 year direction with the strategic plan, with our visitors, and how that's going to look in the future. And this was also the second year of a 2-year budget.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany. Okay, we will start with account 10. Any questions? Account 20, personnel services benefits. Account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property. Account 50, other purchased services.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If we could go back up to 34 under other, I see you have a decrease of 3,840.
That was that grant, to the Madam Mayor, that was the grant that we received for the intern.
And that helped to offset that?
Correct.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you, Bethany.
Account 60, supplies. And account 99, Interfund transfers.
$907-355-8206.
Stu, would you mute your phone, please?
Madam Mayor, may I ask another question,
Yeah.
please? Bethany, when you talked about some of the digital aspect of some of the museum historical pieces, do you do a microfiche type process to store digitally, whatever information you have? Or what kind of process are you using?
Madam Mayor, to Councilmember Sullivan Leonard, we do not use microfiche, mostly because everything is moving to the digital platforms. It's easier to transfer and to migrate the information via digital. And a lot of items that we're, I won't say a lot, some of the photographs and images that we are getting now are digitally born anyway, and that's what part of that digital preservation is. So all those digital photographs that you take, you are able to transfer to us, and we are able to use in our exhibits and our holdings. So, and then as we scan these photographs that come in, again, those are digitally preserved in files so that they're more easily accessible online. So you can look it on your mobile phone, or you can pull it up in an app.
And you have a certain program that you use then for that?
It's just, you just scan it. It's just a normal,
It's just
you have
normal.
a digital scanner and you just scan it, save it as a JPEG or a TIFF file, depending on space that we have. Those can take a while to scan because what people have, other archives and museums have decided is that the best practices is a 2400 DPI, which is dots per inch.
Oh, yeah.
That then takes a long time to scan. So it could take up to 10 to 20 minutes for one picture, depending on how large the original is and then how much information comes in. So, and then we have to have the data storage for that. So we have to save, however megabytes or gigabytes that would be. So again, it's easier for us to do it in-house. We could send it out, but right now with the amount that we're doing, it's more of an on-demand process. So if someone asks for that photograph, that's when we do it right now. If we have time, we will take a collection and say, okay, we have time to do this collection, we're going to digitally process it right now. But most of the time it's as on-demand when we get requests for photographs.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, is there any, Mr. Brown?
Yes, you may have covered it, I may have missed it. Looking at all the things that you're doing and have done, and all the good things I've heard about the museum, how many volunteers do you have?
Mayor Ledford to Councilmember Brown. We are currently building our volunteer organization right now. We have one steady volunteer that comes in, a high school student that helps us with various events and activities. Again, there's a lot of issues we need to work through for volunteers, such as confidentiality, city volunteers, those kind of things. So we want to make sure that the information that we have that people are touching, that we make sure that everything is kosher with it. Just like our copyright, we have a lot of copyright issues with our photographs that we have to go through before we can publish those. So once we get that in place, we're hoping maybe by January we'll have all the forms in place, what we need to do. Because we also want to vet our volunteers and make sure that there's nothing that will come up later on that will embarrass.
I was just looking at your budget and seeing how you was accomplishing all of this with 2 people.
We never sleep. I'm kidding. No, we strategically look at our time, and there's some things that we have had to put off to the side. Like this year, we have cut back our programming so we can focus on our collections, which is the main purpose of the museum. So we won't be doing as many events and activities as we have. Although I am working on the block party right now, so if I'm not all here, I'm focusing on that for next Saturday. So you guys are all welcome, and if you know volunteers who want to come help, next Saturday, 11 to 3, come on down.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany. And next up, Zane with the library. It's paper is page 131 and electronic is 147.
Good evening, Council. My name is Zane Treach. I'm the Library Director. And summary would be, starting off, I guess we're we're the third busiest library in the state based on circulation for an individual location. And then Fairbanks is going to be remodeling for the next year, so we're actually going to be moving to the second busiest individual library in the state. We're doing that with currently 10.5 FTE, and then we have 6 on call that we call in to help with our desk hours. We're busy enough, we keep 4 stations when the library's open. So we have a registration desk, 2 at the front, CLERK, and then 1 in the book drop. Our mission is to provide information to the public and to the citizens around our area of the city of Wasilla. And so we have about 16,000 library card holders right now, and then we're serving a population of about 80,000 people or so that come around our facility. We have 20 public stations people can use for computers, for printing, doing internet access, so people that may not have it at home. And then we do programming for youth. We have extensive programming it helps build literacy at a very early age, the story times, those programs. We have some programs for adults. The Blind Date with the Book program in February. We have adult spelling bee, and then we have the big event coming up as the summer reading program for all ages. Let's see. Yes. In our when I say we provide information, that can be anything from research to someone's recreational, needs. They're just looking to have a good read or watch a movie or something like that. So and everything in between.
Okay. All right, thank you, Zane. We're going to start with account 10, personnel services. Any questions? Account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 30, professional services.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask a question, please, about the computer software maintenance? It looks like there's a reduction of 1,700 on that. Can you give a quick just explanation on that?
So the computer software maintenance is part of that is we had firewalls for the software to handle those things, and so some of the things in our budget that are along the IT lines have been picked up more of a citywide with the IT instead of just our part picking up the budget there. So we're working with Steve to do some of those. That's why it was reduced.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Account 50, other purchased services. Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Any other questions? Colleen?
Yeah, just a quick question, if I could. Maybe Joan can answer this better. Not to put you on the spot, see. We used to have it where the Matsu Borough used to assist us with library funds. And the fact that, I know you're laughing over it, but honestly, I know that's something we've worked with the borough over the years. Is there any additional information on them helping us since, the number of patrons that come through the library are, 90,000 something? And the majority are out of the city proper, so. sorry, whomever.
Oh,
I apologize, not putting anyone on the spot.
I can-
To Councilmember Sullivan, Leonard, through the mayor, you are absolutely correct with 80%, and on a budget of this size, that's incredible absorption of expenses on behalf of the city for folks that live outside our boundaries. The requests have been made to the Matsu Borough, I am aware of that. I'm not under the impression that we've received much traction on that, but it has definitely been brought to their attention.
Okay.
Several times.
Anything in addition?
What I was gonna add, we track weekly our our checkouts, patrons. Currently, any given week, 80-85% of our patrons are from outside the city of Wasilla. And so that's how it is.
Okay, thank you.
Crystal.
To Sullivan, Leonard through the mayor. So our request was put in partnership with Palmer at the same time to the borough, and it was within 2 weeks that their library burned down. And so they tabled the whole conversation of libraries.
All right, good to know.
Okay. Any more questions for Zane? Thank you.
Good budget, thank you.
Thank you, council.
The next is Recreation Services on page 135 for paper and 151 for electronic.
Good evening, council members and Madam Mayor, thank you for your time. Name's Scott Bell, Recreational Service Director. The Recreational Service Program's goals this coming year is to provide a wide range of community events, programs, and activities, engaging the general population to promote outdoor activity, community interaction, and provide family-friendly activities. Upcoming year, I anticipate expanding the popular Music in the Park program, which is, we're moving from Friday to Saturdays, and they're actually going to expand the day, so it'll be approximately 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So the intention is the first half is the family, and then shift into kind of more of an adult evening with the music. So we're very excited about that. We're looking to evolve cleanup days, trying to partner with some businesses, work on our signage, that's part of the budget, and updating our banners, getting a few more of those items. We're looking to integrate and keep operating or improving the 4th of July Mayor's Picnic. And we then do, after the picnic, we do a Music in the Park finale. So we kind of make it an all-day thing. So you start at the parade, you go to the picnic, and you can end up with Music in the Park finale. We're looking to keep hosting more of the ice skating parties at the Menard Center and highlight the New Year's Eve fireworks show. So we have made the decision to not do the 4th of July fireworks because it's light out and it's fire hazard. So we've kind of shifted those resources a little bit. And we're looking at creating additional educational component through our Park Passport program. So some of the budget line items here will kind of include some upgraded printing and working with some consultants. So what we put together is got kind of a higher level of information.
Has left.
I do want to say I can't do this without Tammy Ostrom, my assistant. She is my right-hand rock star, and so she's been great. The teamwork with Public Works, the building department, they've been great. The Menard staff, and then many of the volunteers to try to pull off what we do with very little time for that one. So thank you for your time, and we strive to make a difference in the community. And any questions?
Just real quick.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could just ask one quick question?
Sure.
Okay. With regard to the Christmas friendship dinner, I get calls from folks that are real active in that event, and of course, you're feeding, thousands of people that come through that normally may not have a place to have Christmas dinner, and all the activities involved. Is there a thought that maybe the city could just sponsor the event overall instead of somebody having to fight to get sponsors, try to get money and volunteers coming in? Is that something we could actually just develop in the budget, make it just a real community piece from the city of Wasilla? Because I know we do assist in so many ways in that. My concern is that you've got a lot of people that volunteer in that are getting to the point of aging out. And I'm not saying anything about anyone in a certain age, but their ability to volunteer and cook and all those things, and then also get sponsors from around the community. It's a lot of work. In fact, I'm sure right now they're already talking about it and planning for next year. So I'm just wondering, could we think about that as a city?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Sullivan. So from my chair, the event right now is a Menard Center permitted event.
Yeah.
They do pay a fee, of which the city historically has waived or sponsored a lot of their fees to the tune of $10,000, $15,000. We have worked with them, again, for them, if they want to expand it. Part of that was having them, and their understanding is their intention is to look to the Matsu Foundation, Health Foundation, to kind of sponsor the expense of the event itself. Yes, I know the committee's kind of gone through an evolution of the original founders, Kurt and Bob and Judy and them. And so they've kind of involved themselves. They've formed an LLC. So they're kind of taking it, they've been trying to kind of take it to the next level. They're on their own. My job is to operate the facility, charge its fees, find a balance, and we have done that in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand your role completely. I just thought I'd throw it out there because I do hear from folks in the community, and that's something they'd like to see.
Yeah.
Anyway, just opening it up for
Yep,
review and
absolutely.
discussion. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Brown?
under the recreation manager, I know the Menard Center is involved in the Arctic Winter Games coming, but there's going to be a lot of people coming who are not participants in that. Is there any kind of recreation considerations for the city to display who we are and to offer other recreation opportunities?
Meaning doing a city-based event during that time, so we get that cross-exposure.
Yes.
At this time, there are no plans for that. Most of the plans would be, they're looking at branding the facility quite a bit.
Yes.
With advertising. We just did a tour of the facility with the International and the committee. So right now, there are no plans, mostly because for my position, we are gonna be, for 2 weeks, it's gonna be insane. Nothing more, nothing less. Overtime, overnighters, 24-hour. So my resources will probably barely be able to take care of the games.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm
if
just
somebody's
thinking-
interested, if they want to take something on, I welcome it.
There was just another 3,000 or 4,000 people who are not participants to be here. But I understand if you already booked up with,
We're very booked up. Yes.
Okay, any more questions before we begin? Okay, account 10 is personnel services.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
to Mr. Bell, what is the honorarium?
Through the mayor to Councilmember Velock, the honorarium is Joan can correct me, it is the payment to the Park and Rec commissioners for their meeting time.
Okay, thank you.
And we are fully staffed on our commission, so we're very excited about that.
Account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 50, other purchased services.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
to Mr. Bell, it looks like is it your printing and binding went up considerably this year?
Yeah, the intention is that we're looking to replace the cleanup day banners. And $500 for one of those banners, I think alone is 15, 20 feet long. So the idea is to be replacing those and get them a fresh look, and also that they all look the same.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Account 60, supplies. Okay. Any other questions on recreational services? Okay, Scott, we are going to page 185 on paper and 201 electronically.
So to present the Curtis D. Menard Memorial Sports Center budget, as many of you know, the original Wasilla Municipal or Multi-Sports Complex opened in 2004, over 20 years ago. Proposition passed by only 20 votes. Over those 20 years, the Menard Sports Center has become a focal point of the city, the valley, and the state. Community members have had amazing shared experiences, life memories, stayed active, healthy, and so much more. The facility has seen many kids start out in youth hockey, and as recently you just saw them, became national champions. Pretty amazing, in our own little backyard. Over the next 10 days, we will have hosted 10 schools with their over 1,000 kids graduating at the Menard Center, which is cool, celebrating a landmark time of their life. Our mission is to provide and maintain a first-rate facility to enhance the quality of life, provide recreational opportunities by promoting the use of the facility through various events and activities for the residents of Wasilla and the surrounding communities. It's very common to touch all corners of Alaska, like during the Alaska USA Wrestling Championship, where we had 1,900 athletes from around the state. Our reach has also expanded to the lower 48. We previously had the USA Gymnastics Region 2 Championship. We had athletes from Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington. Can we reach any farther? Heck yes. Arctic Winter Games. The Menard Sports Center will be hosting the opening and closing ceremonies, girls hockey, and several of the championship games. We'll now have 2,100 athletes from places like Alberta North, Greenland, Northern Territories, Nunavik, Quebec, Nunavut, Sapmi, Yukon, and proudly Alaska. Holding large-scale events and statewide events at our facility provides an economic stimulus and value to the local businesses. All this is accomplished through hard work by committed staff who regularly work until midnight, weekends, and even overnight. And to all the other city department heads, your support is appreciated. With your support of this budget, we look to be mindful and respectful of the taxpayers' money, look forward to how we can meet the needs of our growing community, and continue the legacy set some 20 years ago. Just think, 20 votes the other way, and how different Wasilla would look. Thank you.
Any questions before we start? Okay, account 10, personnel services.
Councilman Brown,
Mr. Brown.
I'm just looking at your overtime line. Seem to be small in comparison to, I'm aware of that some of the events go longer than normal, and I'm assuming that's overtime when they have to work.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Brown, so overtime tends to be versions of that, or if somebody's sick, then I've got to bring somebody in for that. We'll have programs where if we need to stay longer to cover activities and events. The biggest one is people going out sick during prime time. We have an event. I've got to pull whatever resources. And part of it has occurred also with, we're appreciative of the additional full-time staff that we got last year. Took us 7 months to fill it. So we may have had it in the regular budget, but I don't have the body, so overtime was, okay, I've got a stopgap with with the staff that I have.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about, I thought it was small, but
We work hard to stay on budget
Right.
and keep staff costs down.
thank you.
Yes.
Account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property. Account 45, construction services.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
could we get a description then for 4519 and 4598? Grounds maintenance, equipment, and then also the proposed budget?
So 4519 grounds maintenance equipment, that line is the Zamboni. We put in the order and it's a 14-month to fill the order. So that order falls off of this part of the budget here. And the other one you said was 4598 was, that is in the capital part of it. That 125 is that's in our capital part of the budget. 125,000 is designated right now for our refrigeration R22 conversion. So right now, when the ice is in, the compressors are running R22. R22 as a refrigerant has stopped production per environmental legislation, which was in 2020. So there's no more new production of R22. Pre-COVID, you could get a propane-sized bottle of R22 ranged at the $400 to $500 a bottle. Right now, it's at $2,000 plus. Because they're not producing more, so what you do is the market is getting people that are converting, then they're able to recover some level of that. And so this R22 pricing is doing this. So if we had, let's say, a complete leak right now, it would cost $85,000 to $90,000 to replace all the refrigerant. So the idea is to put in a plan so that we can convert to a new refrigerant that right now is $300 to $500 a 35-pound bottle of refrigerant. Then also part of that expense is we've operated the R22 level at about 40-45%, where ideally should be in the 60 to 70. But to do that would cost us $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, because we do lose on average at least 100 or more pounds. So last year we had to replace $12,000 of refrigerant, and that is kind of the usual bleed off of that. So the intent is to do this in a planned time, which would be next summer when the ice is out, so that we can completely convert it. Then we will also have local resources to replace the refrigerant that we would be using.
Sounds great. Madam Mayor, just one
Yes.
more question, please. With the thought that, of course, the Menard Center's 20 years old, how is the equipment in the kitchen? Is there a need for replacement for the ovens, the stoves, anything?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Sullivan Leonard, the kitchen equipment as a whole is doing great. There's no immediate need for any replacement in there at this time. We have laid out a few other things that you'll see later that we're looking at projecting forward to consider, but right now the kitchen as a whole is great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I have a thought. What if we never put the ice back in and put basketball courts?
You tell that to the hockey family.
I will. Think of the cost associated with that.
Yeah.
The
And
breakdown of every event.
yeah, and thinking aloud and thinking with my future glasses on, the turf area usage and things that may or may not be coming, certainly bring that space into consideration. So yes, we're listening to the buzz in the neighborhood and the needs and where things are at. Yes.
No.
Do you want to make money?
Okay,
Ice
just
is
to echo
expensive.
on that, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we're a big basketball family, so why not add on to the Menard Center? We have how many acres there?
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. She started it. I just go on.
Keep going though, keep going.
Don't add on. No. Our ice costs us so much money there, right? For every event, we got to cover
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
And to build it every year and then break it down, I mean, there's just, the business side of me says, absolutely not. Maintenance on a basketball court, you could put 3 or 4 in there, and events can be held there. I mean, it makes sense, we need to move with the times. There's nowhere for kids to play. You could turn basketball courts into volleyball courts, tennis courts, racquetball, pickleball, you name it, it can all be played there.
I'll have a conversation with you girls.
Us girls.
I like that.
Yes.
Next year.
It, and kind of directly through the mayor, Councilmember Rubio. Going back to my opening statement, the vision of the facility 20 years ago and how we're using it today, it's crazy what we're doing today with what we have, because it wasn't designed for a lot of this. And how do we look forward to, again, we have a 20-year-old facility. The community has changed, the market demand has changed. Again, remember that yes, hockey's a staple and it's important to the community in a lot of ways and more expensive. But we're also, again, using that space for events, and the event requests just kind of keep going and going. And so Madam Mayor and I have had conversations about a lot of different ways to think forward, because we do think of things like convention space, basketball courts. Do you need the turf? Do you convert the turf? So there's a lot of things there that we have been working on or discussing for a year, just to kind of be ready to react and act when it's right.
So I guess my question is always, hockey is very limited compared to what maybe we should do some polls to see what that would bring in, because I know being more versatile than just one sport is going to bring in more of the community.
Yes, right now I can say, and part of the reason we take the ice in and out is because we get to a point where the cost is not worth it. Just simply the compressor costs alone. As you'll see in the budget, when we're full-blown winter compressors are running, we're at $20,000, $25,000 in electric bill. And try to maintain that through a summer just makes no financial sense. But then that's when we get the outdoorsman show and we get graduations and all these different things. So hockey as a whole, when we're operating though, weekends we're booked 8 in the morning to usually midnight. Weekdays we're booked from 3:30 to 10 o'clock on a regular basis. The problem where we lose or we can't keep up in the revenue to offset the expense is at 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock when everybody's in school, at their job and things like that. And so that's kind of the gap. So everyone in the hockey community or the freestyle ice skating community are all compressed. First, the kids between 3:30 and about 7, 8 o'clock, and then the adults kind of roll in later. So it's a real unique balance between all the rinks, but there is a demand for ice until there's not, and then there's none. So.
Madam Mayor? So the demand for ice, let's put it out back. We can put 2 or 3 rinks. We live in Alaska, right? There's no maintenance out there. You don't have to build the ice. You just have to maintain it. We already bought a brand new Zamboni, right? Think of that.
I know an outdoor rink was in the pretty little drawings in the beginning of the design, which would have been where the trench cabin and that stuff was, as kind of a outdoor area. I do know, the Brett or the middle school has that outdoor rink there. And its use is okay. It's not that busy. A lot of it's because it's the middle schools, but the Brett or the borough quote maintains it. But it's also getting the equipment, the Zamboni over there. It can be challenging to have an outdoor rink, but if you do an outdoor rink, you just build the infrastructure for it, and then we can do anything successfully.
A lot cheaper.
Yes.
Okay, account 50, other purchase services. Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Okay, is there any other questions for Scott?
Thank you for your time. And your money budget.
Okay, public safety. Administration is on page 87. And electronically on 103.
Good evening. Wow. So to start off with the summary, I can tell you that I probably replayed this in my head about 90 times before today because I feel like in this year, Wasilla PD has been busy. It's kind of taken a little back on memory lane. I started here in 2006 over at where MATCOM's at, and was a part of a big development of where the police department construction. And I left in 2019, and we're back, and it's nice to come back into a facility that Mr. Cottle ended up providing for us, and it's a wonderful feeling to come into a brand new building and have a footprint and a new staple of how do I want the department to move forward given this new image that I feel like we've been blessed with. As we all know, I can remember back from when I started back in 06, very frequently have I ever can remember that we were fully staffed. When I left in 2019, I was the 7th person that left, and I don't think it's really kind of varied all that much from there. And I am pretty confident to say is that over the years, it was frustrating as being a sergeant moving forward and having a vision to see where this department could go. It was limitations based on stagnant thinking, and with that is that it was lesson learns, and at some point I knew I'd be back here in Alaska in this position or in a position with WPD. And even while I was gone, I had a bunch of ideas and would still verbally talk about those ideas when I was down in Colorado. Again, given the opportunity to come here, I started implementing these ideas that I had, and I knew that we had to change the way that we hired and recruited into retention. And it was just basically going back to the drawing board. Other agencies were throwing money at the problem, but they're still having the same issues that every other agency in the lower 48's having. Having signing bonuses, I realized over the course of the studies that they didn't work, so we started looking at different ways that we could recruit qualified applicants other than quantity of applicants. And so we started taking baby steps and started looking at kind of the different things, and that was one of the biggest priorities of probably my summary of this year, was focusing on the recruiting aspect and recognizing the growth and opportunity that people in this career want to move forward. It's recognizing their ability to be, their experience and their opportunity to move forward in a department. And with my strategic goals was to really talk about interdepartment relations. It's the officer wellness. I know our job is to go out there and protect the public for a broad version of that, but it's also a part of my mindset and kind of the direction that I'm going is that I'm here to also look after the officers. And you will see through my probably your very questionable budget and some variations, which should probably get comfortable because I have a feeling I'm going to be sitting here for a while. And I'll have some ideas on kind of where I'm going with this, and you'll see some different variations which you probably haven't seen in the past, and hopefully I can provide a great explanation of that. As we move forward with it, part of my other strategic was community outreach. You know, I'm a firm believer is that, you know what, everybody knew that WPD existed, but they didn't know who we are. These are guys and gals that work in the community. They have faces and they're a part of this community, and I want people to understand the people that work for them. We work for you guys, we work for the citizens, and I want people to know that they're committed to the city, and that needs to have some attention to that, and it's a shift that I have never seen in 17 years of being here. Part of that is also the technology infrastructure. You'll see some movement that, you know, some plans they got moving to build that infrastructure and that software to kind of better assist the officers going out and doing their jobs. And a lot of that is kind of just basically not trying to reinvent the wheel, but make that wheel go smoother because the technology's out there. I have seen it. I know it's there, and it's just going to have good vision to get there, and I think that we can. And lastly, it's going to be, excuse me, and the last one was the operational improvements. And that's kind of refocusing on our calls for service and prioritizing what's important to us. You know, one of the things that's been going on this week, and now that we're almost right into it, we're about finishing up here in a couple hours, is that they were doing an operation this week. They had 46 to 52 law enforcement agencies that were working in the core area this week. And on 2 days, they were able to gather over 500 grams of fentanyl, 100 grams of heroin, 150 grams of meth, and they made over 35 arrests, and that's in 2 days. That's just here in the core area. And the statistics are going to be a lot higher. And again, I feel confident because they're about ready to finish up the operation. But I'm just kind of realizing that is that it's here. And that's where our focus needs to be, is to get redirecting, be proactive, to go out there and stop this stuff that's hurting our community. And that's my mission, is to get into partnerships where I've seen it years ago, working with the drug unit. There's very few people that are working with the state. We haven't been able to support that position in a very long time, and it's a goal to move forward with it. So as we talk about the budget, there's going to be some questions on it, and hopefully that I'd be able to answer it to the best of my ability and kind of give you some background on kind of where I'm going with it. And again, I'm here to answer questions, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot. So that's my summary in a nutshell. Do we have any questions?
No, Mayor.
No.
Mr. Brown?
Chief, thanks for giving that introduction. A lot of people don't consider the things that you just mentioned, and as a previous detachment commander, if you don't take care of the people, it resonates all the way down to service to the citizens. And a lot of people question cars and technology and stuff, but that's all taking care of people. And I'm happy to hear from you and to see and watch and observe the things you've been doing for the department, because I think it ultimately is for the people of Wasilla. But you can't do that if you're not taking care of your people. So thank you for that very much, and we'll see if we can't slightly beat you.
Colleen?
Just a quick question. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that summary. I know how hard you guys work. I had just a quick question with regard to the police blotter. I know there have been questions from folks in the community and on Facebook just wanting to see if we could have something that shows on a weekly basis what it is that we're doing for public safety in our community. Is that something that you think we should pursue to get out there? Or I guess I want feedback from you in the sense, you know, you can get a few naysayers on Facebook, but honestly, are people calling you every week saying, hey, where's the police blotter? Is it that important of a piece to pursue to have out there?
Yes, Councilmember Sullivan Leonard. You know, we talked about this before. We looked at a more interactive map, Anchorage PD is doing an interactive map, and I can put a press release out there that says John Doe got arrested for X, Y, and Z. But the people that live in the neighborhoods of the different subdivisions, they can look at that crime map and see what thefts are going on. One of the biggest things that I like to do is it's called DDEX. It's a data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety, right? So it's looking at the information that's out there and be able to use my resources available to do strategic operations in high crime areas. If there's a high burglary in a subdivision or at the movie theater or at Walmart, and I can look at that information and I can use my resources other than sending somebody out there for 12 hours. I can kind of start getting patterns and putting in that. And also the people that are moving into the area or that are visiting the area, they have a live interactive map on kind of what's going on in their neighborhood. I know Facebook is a social media platform that we all count and look on a lot of that, but it's also a third-party entity that I don't like to count on. I don't like the inability to be able to control that. And with that is that it's kind of more, we're getting officers and staff there at the PD, public information officers, to be able to say, you should be able to go to the city's website, be able to go to our platform that we're able to control and get that information. We still use it, it's a very valuable tool, but at least we can kind of get out that interactive map, and if there's anything, just like we had this pursuit that I'm sure that was plastered all over Facebook, then we'll put out a major press release that gives the information of saying, hey, this is something other than your normal shoplifting over at Walmart. This is something that was an individual that needed to be arrested and put into jail. And this is to the level that we went to, and we need to do better at that. But we also have some technologically difficulties with that information, talking to the crime map and talking with, and I know what you're referencing to on the Facebook. We just had some hiccups with our technology to make sure that they all talked, and hopefully we got those bugs out and it doesn't seem to be any issues. And we're trying to fine tune it and what's going to be the best to get that information out to the public.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with account 10, personnel services. Account 20, personnel services benefit.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, Simon.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask about the overtime.
That's where I was going.
Oh, you were too? Okay. It looks like we have a big difference between 23 and 24.
Oh.
I'd be more than happy to answer that. I don't know if I need to refer to Joan or. With 5 bodies down for FY23, and I want to clarify is that our 5th position was conditionally offered and accepted. It just has some other testing to do, but it sounds like it's pretty good that she'll be coming on with us here in the next couple weeks after her 2-week notice. And that would be my the 5th position. So that I'm pretty excited for 5 positions under a year. But with that is that we had a lot of shift coverage. I've noticed that over the course of this fiscal period that we've had, our increased calls, the type of calls are requiring more than one person. That's requiring more than 2, so I'd like to keep my minimum staffing at a 3. And that's actually even utilizing sergeants, so I had to be able to throw them into the patrol mix and they're not doing their sergeant duties. Then we've had, pulling SROs back from the schools that they had to get plugged into patrol. I've had coverage for workman's comp. I have coverage for trying to get up in training. I've had coverage for court and other unexpected events that come up, such as you get a traffic collision. Our shifts run from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And 9 times out of 10, you can count on that there's going to be a traffic collision at rush hour traffic that will hold the staff over until they can get it cleared. There's a lot of unknowns that are a part of that overtime, but it's a lot of it is also our minimum of our staffing is trying to maintain officer safety and responding to calls in a timely manner.
Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question. Because you guys know that statistically, could you ever move the shift change to like a quieter hour? I don't know,
Right now, we're getting more benefit with running 12-hour shifts. I know that's 6-7 years ago when we had to go to 12-hour shifts because of our manning, I remember the conversation, it was only gonna be temporary. And now we're into this, and now from a management standpoint, it's a great shift because you can get that coverage and you also get that team aspect of working together, and they work well together. 410s is it costs more overtime, and it's a hard shift to manage. As we look at reducing, going from our CBA, our contract, it has to be, I believe, within a certain time frame, if I remember correctly. You look at 5 to 5, and then one shift is getting majority of the calls. You look at 7 to 7, the other shift's getting the other half. So it's split is from 6 to 6 to have the response for the calls. That's the best way that we've seen that works out the best to maximize the amount of call logs or call volume per shift. So one's not getting all and one's not getting any.
That's what I found, okay.
Madam Mayor, the overtime, you're talking about unexpected events, did you take in consideration with the influx of 2,000 to 5,000 people doing winter games next year?
And that's a part of it, we brought it up in there. Right now, I have already blocked off, it's right during spring break. And right now, we would have our 2 SROs back in the school, but due to some on-duty work injuries, that they weren't able to go back. We're still going to move forward with putting all 3 SROs there. I have blocked off any kind of training, any kind of PT or pay time off, any kind of vacation. And the SROs right now are to be scheduled to work until we can kind of get an idea what's expected. And for us, it will be kind of an all hands on deck to be available until we can kind of solidify a great schedule and get that balanced all the way across to have the maximum coverage that we can.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on, account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I see a decrease of 53,846 on line 4030 under repair and maintenance. Can you tell me what that is?
Absolutely. That is because of our garage, our WPD garage. The way that we do our preventive maintenance is that it's billed out for per vehicle. So we have administration vehicles, we have investigation vehicles, we have SRO vehicles, and patrol. And what we found out is that it's hard to our mechanic, which will go and buy oil filters in bulk, wipers for Dodge vehicles, for Jeep vehicles, for Chevys and Fords. He will go and get a surplus of bulk order to go get these supplies. And when he does that, it gets coded to the shop, not the individual vehicle that's getting fixed. So when my car for administration needs to have an oil change, other than it getting coded to administration, it will get coded through the shop because he'll have it on hand. The other alternative is that if I drop my car off, he'd have to go down to the store, go buy the oil change or the preventative maintenance, the brakes, the tires, or whatever, and code it to my specific department. And it just seems very not cost effective or time effective to stop what he's doing to go get parts for that specific car. So you'll see that makeup in the garage budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Account 50, other purchased services. Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Any other questions for the chief on administration? Hearing none. Thank you, chief. Now we're over to page,
I think I have a lot more, ma'am.
oh yeah, I know. You're gonna be with me. We are to general investigation, page 89, page 105, electronically. Go ahead.
Chief, you had mentioned workloads and stuff compared to previous years, and with the population in the valley growing, maybe not proper Wasilla, how is that affecting your investigation budget and the amount of crimes you are now being forced to investigate?
We are seeing an influx of more complex investigations, and that's in. I'm gonna kind of go back up a little bit, and hopefully I don't get too long-winded. Over the course of the years, we've had an investigator and an acting investigator. I've actually served in that acting investigator position. It kind of comes and goes as we need with patrol. 2016, it was more set where the thought process was that we'll pull a patrol position, put them in as an acting investigator, just because of the call logs and the cases call for that. We will train this person or the officer, and then in 2 years we will have somebody else go into that. In 2000, late 19, our second person ended up going in there, who is actually currently in that position now in an acting investigator role. Since he has started, he has worked over 325 cases, not specifically cases, but it's called for a lot of unclassified felony cases. It calls for a lot of your high-level felony, to include multiple property crimes. And what we're finding is that the crimes that should be passed on to investigations is getting absorbed by patrol, because investigations are working your sexual assaults, your sexual abuse of minors, your high-level assault cases, your strangulation cases, your severe DV cases. And with that officer in there, just doing a records check, it was, since 2020, he's had 325 either cases, follow-ups, search warrants, or any kind of informational reports that he's writing on the cases that he's at. Our longer investigator is much higher than that, but it resorts back a lot farther than that. In the sense of being wise, what I felt with our training and experience, I felt like it takes a good year to year and a half to have a good investigator, good on his feet, where he doesn't have to have that oversight. And I feel like having that acting investigator position, the way it's written, is that as soon as I get them well trained, that I'm pulling them per the job description to have somebody else go do it, and I'm starting this wheel all over again. There's a lot of cases. We just had an officer spent half her shift working a storage unit right over the road here, about having multiple stolen items in a storage unit. Typically would be to an investigation, but due to their call volume, their pending cases, that patrol absorbs that, which takes that individual out of the call rotation. And that's the stuff that kind of can consume my overtime considerably.
And that's why I asked the question. I'm all in favor of having a part-time or a trainer to come in once in a while to learn, but knowing the complexity of cases, the complexity of the court system now and the criminal justice system, having two full-time people, because like you say, you get a guy trained, and just when he make the right connections and get into it, you pulling them out and putting a brand new person there, which takes some time just to get comfortable with this new position, and you're losing time and money by doing that every 2 years.
Okay. We are account 10, professional services. Account 20, professional services benefit. Account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property. Account 50, other purchased services. Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Moving on to patrol, page 90 in paper. And 106 electronically. This is Public Safety Patrol.
Madam Mayor again.
Yes.
Chief, what is your patrol section, specifically supervisors, doing to enhance the relationship with minority communities?
Right.
That's where the road meets the rubber there, is those communities not coming from different areas, not knowing police and having different aspects of police.
One of the things that we ended up incorporating is our Police One Academy, which is a web-based training program that is more geared more law enforcement. I believe the other agencies will find, or other departments in the city will find that APEI. Is it APEI? Is that what it's called? Ours is kind of more geared for the Police One, which has some good benefit of discrimination, bias, that type of training. We reached out to the Matsu Health Foundation, to the groups that's 16, 17 that we've heard over there, to go out there and build those relationships. You know, one of the things that's very important to me was building the relationships of having all my officers CIT trained within 2 years. I set, and I know that kind of veering away from what your question, but it's a part of the de-escalation of building those relationships, and a part of it is talking before acting. I understand that prior to coming back that there was an incident over at Walmart that was not looked very favorable, and I replay that in my mind a lot, and perception and videos are completely different. However, it's something that we haven't seen here, and it's understanding, like, to work on those de-escalations, to say, is there a better way that we can diffuse the situation based on what the perception of what we're doing to a certain ethnic group or whatever the case may be. One of the things that we're moving on to is also including kids with special needs. That holds a special place in my heart on having officers understand the different needs of kids in the community, that can actually even be of the adults, of understanding the characteristics of, you know, somebody may not be, a nonverbal autistic individual may not be, you know, purposely fighting with somebody, but there's characteristics in there to say, do I have the signs that should I act appropriately in the middle of a fight? Given my wife is an occupational therapist, she deals with a lot of nonverbal autistic kids. I have been up there and they have been triggered. There's things in there that I've watched them to calm individual down that I use today, and I want the officers to learn that. As expanding our knowledge of getting that training, I honestly don't know if there's a lot of training in the area here for that. I really don't. It's something that it's a part of that community outreach and community growth, and I think a lot of it is just getting those groups down here and having an open dialogue and having a good conversation. We invite people. This is the first year in our history that I can remember is that we're doing a national night out on the first Tuesday in August, which is a community outreach program, and where that whole parking lot is going to be full of people, vendors, and we encourage individuals to come down in here to talk with us and really open up that dialogue to have this connection before an incident gets plastered all over Facebook or the news media, and so that we can come to a peaceful resolution, so we don't have to go down that road.
And Madam Mayor, to follow up on that, on the same line, mental health training and awareness.
Yeah. Yes, and one of my goals is I just got done, was able to have the APSC, which is the Alaska Police Standards Council fund for 2 officers to go to Salt Lake City here, and I believe it's in the end of August. They will be almost like train the trainer. They will be certified along with a couple state troopers in the state to have that crisis intervention training to work on those de-escalations, and I want to include the youth CIT part for our SROs that are working in here. Mental health it's a huge component. It's here. And it also takes a lot of resources and time away from officers. And that's why we partnership with the mobile crisis team and able to have a good working relationship with them, and that they're able to respond for a non-violent, non-arrest, even if it is a slight arrest we can look at a different avenue other than arresting somebody and tying up the hospitals for hospital clearance, tying up the jails for a very overworked justice system. They're able to go and make contact with these individuals. We can clear the scene, respond to other calls, and then you actually get the resources that they can, and provide them a case manager and a follow-up that would get them hopefully pointed in the right direction. And again, unfortunately, we have two options: it's hospital or jail, and that's not the answer. That's to fix it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did we hit account 10 yet?
Nope.
Sorry. Okay. Because I had a question on the regular and the overtime increase. 627,581.
Sorry, which one are we on again?
We're on account 10, personnel services.
I believe,
Account 10.
no, I thought she said 600,000.
Yeah.
Right, I don't have that number.
You're on the
Oh,
wrong
I'm
page.
sorry, am I not on page 90? Aren't we under patrol?
You are,
Where am I?
yeah, you're on the right page,
Oh, okay.
but you're using the whole number for regular and overtime.
Right,
For
and I had a question.
627.
Correct, that was my question. What that all entails.
I think a lot of that is actuals. Trying to maintain minimum staffing with unexpected calls with court, workman's comp, training, pay time off, and trying to best sort our community needs on that. I believe that would be actuals. Is that correct, Joan? Maybe you can kind of provide a little bit more information on that?
Absolutely, to Councilmember Sullivan Leonard. So you can see that in 2021, we had actuals of 26,000. In 2022, we had actuals of 35,000. And, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. No wonder, sorry. So we had overtime of 206,000, actuals of 334,000 in 2022, and we are at 289,000 currently with 2 months left to go. And the chief is right. So the things that cause overtime, training, PTO, military leave, FMLA, workers' comp, events in the community, agency assists, and there's only a couple of those that we really have a choice about, which are the community events and agency assists. And so
Right.
even though we might be fully staffed, as soon as one participates in any of those activities, it requires overtime.
Right, and I mean, no doubt. I was just looking at it because there's an increase being proposed of 105,868. So you're anticipating the overtime with the new position and then with the increased volume of Arctic Winter Games, traffic, et cetera. So that's what I'm reading into that increase. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, and then to address the regular salary then at $521.713 increase. Is that a new patrol officer plus changes with the contract with our union?
It's going to include, yes, the officer, and then I believe that was estimated at 153,000. And then in addition, we have the 7% increase just from CPI and STEP, which they range from around approximately 2.5. And then within that, we also have, differential. And so part of that is trying to understand which officers, is it going to be the more senior one, the less senior one? And so then we have to apply a little bit of a buffer, not knowing who's going to accept that mandatory overtime.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, moving on, account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
to the chief, rentals, I see the big increase is like a Xerox copier machine, is that right? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I know exactly what that was. I received a message from the purchasing officer within a couple months of our budget in October saying, hey, you need, here's a little note that you need to up your rental because of the Valley Business Machines. Currently it's not covering enough, so I did the offset, or I did the adjustment to cover it was, I'm sure it was a copier through the Valley
Yeah,
Business Machine.
It says copier rental.
Okay.
So you have the same level of service you've always had? Did the cost just go up? Is that what it is, or?
And that may be a Joan, my memory is saying that we are charged per paper now. She may be able to answer that better than I can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we rent all of our copiers through VBM, and it is done, per page fee. And so if they're just producing more paper pamphlets, I know they did quite a bit of education brochures for use at the fair. So I think it's just stemming from an additional
Oh,
use.
okay, yeah, it's quite a jump. So, I was curious.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, account 50, other purchased services. Account 60, supplies.
Councilman Brown,
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at ammunition went down.
And I may refer to Joan. I think from what I'm seeing here is that where there's a increase was that there was, due to the shipping shortages in FY2020, orders were made but didn't get delivered until, and I still actually have ammo cases that are still pending right now from a 2022 order. To accommodate or to switch that, I found a different vendor that has been able to get out pallets of ammunition in 4 weeks. So since then, we are trying to surplus our ammo so that we don't get into a tight situation where we're waiting 2 years again. And we also found a vendor that provides the same ammunition for much cheaper per case and a quicker freight time.
I need his name. Because most of us are having to wait long periods of time to fulfill ammo requirements.
Account 99, interfund transfers. Any other questions for patrol? Hearing none, we're moving on to page 91, paper, 107, electronic, and it's the safety resource officer. Account 10 is personnel services.
Councilman Brown, is any of the other schools requesting SROs, and what's the chances of them getting additional?
Good question, sir. Again, one of the One of the hardest decisions that I had to do this year was to pull the SROs out of Colony and Houston. Being an SRO myself, I understand the importance with it and the relationships that it's built. And I really stress very hard to people to understand the benefit to that. And it's a very hard, measurable performance because of the impact that it's given on a day-to-day basis. With that is that I was trying to get them back in there as soon as I can. We also found that working with Palmer PD, that they were, for geographical purposes, that they were interested in Colony, and we'll be shifting our resources to Reddington. I have made it very well known with the school district here that I have a 5-year vision of increasing the SRO program to include schools in the core area, and even partnership, hopefully, with Palmer later, to have that coverage where if there's an SRO that's out, that we still have a roaming or coverage or a unit that can go 5-6 deep. Obviously, there's a lot of planning and coordination with that, and in cooperation with the school district. We are slated to have a meeting here after graduations to kind of look at Reddington, and looking at, hey, putting it out there where our mission is and where I want to go. I wholeheartedly believe that Wasilla PD can be the forefront and be the model of not only in the area but in the state of how we can provide a good resource for those kids in the school, even if they are outside of our operating or our city limits. And I have the personnel right now that really want to take it to another level, and I support that. It's just going to take some planning to get to that level.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just on that same vein, with regard to school resource officers, I know it's a big topic all across the nation with regard to having safe schools and keeping our kids safe. Are there grants out there from the federal side, Department of Justice or whatever, to assist you in your endeavor?
Luckily, we've actually had a staff member, Nikki, has just received her grant training. And there is a lot of grants in the law enforcement world. I have not personally seen a lot in the school resource. Doesn't mean that if it exists, I believe it's going to be more on the school district side than ours to have that funding. I just haven't seen a lot come through that I've physically seen, because typically a bulk of that expense is absorbed by the school district, where very little is by the actual department itself, and that's kind of pretty standard across the nation.
And how much then is the school district
Currently,
assisting us in that?
Currently, the same contract that's been like that for a lot for all three of us is 75% to 25%.
Perfect, okay, thanks.
Okay, account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 40, purchased property. Account 50, other purchased services. Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Okay, we are moving on to garage. Page 92 for paper and 108 for electronic.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Chief, you kind of mentioned earlier, but could you just reiterate the benefits you see in having your own garage rather than having to go to Alaska Sales or Seekins or wherever to get your maintenance done?
Yes, sir. So I was not part of being hired on. This is one of the things, managing the vehicle fleet in the years past, I've always pushed for having a mechanic in our own garage here at WPD for a magnitude of reasons. A lot of it is to cut down on the cost and availability. I can personally attest that it was very straining on me to go out and make sure that our spare vehicles are running when they were parked outside MATCOM and along the fence there. When I needed a vehicle, 9 times out of 10 that they were dead, they were bald tires, stuff wasn't worked, the radio needed to be programmed, a whole onslaught of issues that when we needed a spare. The upkeep was not there, and you're subject to a third-party vendor to try to work you in to get whenever you needed to get done. We had a contract, I believe, at the time with Mr. Lube. They sold it off to somebody else, and then we went to another local business. I can also attest is that there was times where I did not leave my car. I had personally arrested or dealt with an individual, and I did not leave my car because I put a lot of trust and faith into that car every given day, and I wasn't comfortable just leaving it. We were also paying shop rates shop rates discounted, but there wasn't any accountability. There wasn't any accountability to the staff that was working on it if there was issues, and there wasn't any accountability of having those cars working properly, and I felt like there was a lot of corners cut when preventative maintenance needed to be done. I can attest right now that I was not a part of the hiring of our current mechanic, but I'm telling you that we completely lucked out with that individual, and by far does he exceed the expectations that I ever had. His ability to go in there and to do things that I didn't think that job is a benefit to us, and you know, and it has definitely paid off to have a person with that foresight and that forward thinking of what needs to be done. And what I'm seeing is that it's the work that he's able to do has cut down on our downtime on our vehicles considerably. Compared to he was able to drop a steering column out of a car, and it needed he found it was a gasket. It was like a $4 gasket that needed to be replaced. It was covered underneath warranty, but they were 3 weeks out. For a $4 gasket, he was able to just go down there and go get it, put us back in service. The cost benefit of to pay $4 outweighed having a car out of service for 3 weeks. Plus with that is that he's staying on top of preventative maintenance. You will see here shortly there's some equipment that we need to help him reduce those costs of transmission flushes, another vehicle lift to not the ability to slow them down. But I'm telling you, for me, for keeping the upkeeps of the car and disposing of them and getting ready to disposal, has just been the convenience of having him there, and the knowledge I felt has this been absolutely phenomenal to have him there, and I couldn't speak highly of that individual there and that person in that position right now.
Thank you.
Okay, account 10, personnel services. Account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 40, purchased property. Account 50, other.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're just gonna have to mention that 1,166% increase.
I was waiting for that.
And that kind of refers back to Councilmember Sullivan Leonard's
Okay.
question, is that's absorbing all the vehicle maintenance from the different divisions for the preventative to do the brakes, oil changes, tires, transmission flushes, anything that's for any specific vehicle. It gets all controlled through him now, so it's not coded out. We're stopping his workflow. So that's where all the reduction of repair and maintenance in each of those categories is now getting absorbed into specifically his and that line item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Account 50, other purchased services. Account 60, supplies. Account 70, capital purchases. Okay, we're moving on to code compliance, page 96 on paper and 112 electronic.
Mayor?
Yes.
Could we get a summary on code compliance? Since it's moved over now from Public Works to Public Safety.
And part of that summary may be referring to Public Works Director. So one of the code compliance before I left was part of the Westfield PD. And when I had left, somewhere between 19, 20, 21, at whatever point, it was moved over to Public Works. Looking forward, kind of where we're at now is that in the event for our code compliance officer to do his job effectively, we found some deficiencies on how he's able to do that job with the courts. It's not that he's not able to do it, it's the CGIS and the clearance of using our MATCOM radio dispatch, is that with him falling underneath Public Works, it doesn't necessarily fall in line of him having CGIS clearance when he's going up and talking to individuals. He's not able to clear them. And what I mean by that is to get information over the radio or hear information through MDT, which is our mobile data terminals in the cars. We issue our citations through the vehicles through Tracks, which is a digital citation that gets automatically pushed every night to the courts, where simultaneously you can be able to pay those fines online or go to the courthouse to do this. He was not a part of that system, so the tickets were kind of, from my understanding, was something that the courts have not seen or having issues with. And I may not be, hopefully, maybe, am I kind of 100%, am I accurate on that? Okay, I'm trying to refresh my memory on it, I apologize. What it comes down for us to have it more underneath the side of public safety was, we give him a radio, we have him go out and contact the public, we have hazards on certain properties that he should be privy to. He does wear a ballistic vest, he does issue citations, and it didn't feel like if he's over at Public Works, we would have had to severely limit his ability to go do those things. And that's the safety component, is that I didn't feel that it was necessary to restrict him with that.
Sounds great. So, sorry, I'm not thinking real clearly here, but did you say then that the tickets that he had issued had not been followed through with the court system, or is that also payment of, or?
I believe it was the way that the courts were accepting the citations. It had to be, they had to be handwritten, correct? And then they had to be submitted and taken over there, submitted. He would still be able to issue them, but to have them pushed electronically through the Tracks and have that, it was everything. They were trying to get away from hand entering citations into, I guess, I don't know, for lack of a better, their database, or have the defendant pay online to have that ability. So if I were to issue a citation to any of you leaving here today as fast as you can, when it gets pushed to the it's almost simultaneously where you can get online and go pay it. And we don't have that ability now, kind of where he's at.
Okay, account 10, personnel services. Account 20, personnel services benefit. Professional services, account 30. Account 40, purchased property. Account 50, other purchase services. Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Okay, we are on to youth court. Page 143 for paper and 159 for electronic.
Just a quick summary, please, on youth court.
Youth Court, Krista has been with us for quite a while. I believe a lot of that funding is kind of intra-funds with, Joan, correct me if I'm wrong, is it the Mansfield Health Foundation that covers majority of it? We provide, I'll just refer to Joan.
So a significant portion of the funding for this program is still received through the State of Alaska Department of Justice Juvenile Justice, as well as she does a phenomenal job of finding local resources. MEA is a big component, as well as Bishop Savick and other Alaska peace officers. So she does recruit sponsorships through them.
And youth court is a program that's for all youth across the valley. It's very successful. Is Matt Suburo assisting in funding this as well?
So we receive normally a block grant from them for planning, and a piece of that kind of is the understanding is that 25,000 of that would go to the youth court. And so we are still planning on that, of course.
Okay. Account 10, personnel services. Account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property. Account 50, other purchased services.
Just a quick question, please.
Yes.
With regard to travel for Crystal, it looks like that's, let me see. Travel was 18,000 and then proposed budget is 3. Kind of what's the difference on that? Or?
I believe they went to, was it a large group that just went to Washington DC.
Oh, and that's what part of that is. Okay. Oh, that's right. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Account 60, supplies. Okay. Is there any other questions for youth court? Moving on, it would be federal asset forfeiture. Look at that. Page, paper is 137, electronic is 153.
What page is that again?
It says 137.
Got 138.
Okay. This is Special revenue funds. Review report.
Madam Mayor, I can speak to the
Would you
federal
please?
and state asset forfeiture account. So this is where we account for the receipt and use of funds passed through to us from the federal and state asset forfeiture program. It really is dependent upon a case and whether or not we're involved in if we receive a portion of that. We have received an allocation for a couple of years. We aren't aware of any pending case to be settled where we would be a recipient, and so the uses and sources of funds are budgeted for zero.
Okay. Any questions to Joan on the federal or the state asset forfeiture? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You let them go?
Yes.
I'm out.
Jacob's back, he's waiting.
Hey, Jacob, you're up. Public Safety Dispatch, MATCOM, is page 101 paper and 117 electronically. And you want to give a brief summary,
Yeah,
would you please?
absolutely. Good evening, council members. Jacob Butcher, Communications Manager for MATCOM Dispatch. We are the primary 911 center for the Mat-Su Borough, and east through the Copper River subcensus area, Wrangell St. Elias National Park to the Canadian border, and down through Prince William Sound and Anchorage for Alaska Wildlife Troopers. We have a dispatch center of 8 consoles, 6 radio consoles, 2 additional call taker only positions. We just recently completed full operations on our backup dispatch center over at the Wasilla Police Department, which has 4 backup consoles with the ability to plug in 2 additional call taker stations there in case anything happens at our MATCOM building with services compromised or structural damage in an earthquake, that type of thing. We currently have staffing for a total of 33 personnel there, to include IT positions, administrative staff for support, 5 call takers, supervisors, and most recently we just established our quality assurance and improvement program in hopes of getting our medical and fire dispatch protocol processing up to the highest standard possible. So calendar year 2022, I believe we processed in the area of 210,000 phone calls. That's inbound and outbound. 911 calls was just under 50,000 of that. I've seen over the last 2 years a steady decrease in our calls for service. They're called our CAD incidents. Each call for service for fire, EMS, or police gets its own incident number assigned to it. We've seen a steady decrease from that, and I believe part of that has been a big push by our dispatchers to defer people to the appropriate resource. Historically, since I've been working there, I've been there about 17 years, it's been kind of MATCOM as a one-stop shop. If somebody has a question or needs anything, they can call in. And law enforcement, especially historically, has been, if you want a police officer, you're going to get a police officer. The population and call volume around here is just too substantial for that anymore. So some of those alternative resources have been things like the mobile crisis team that just got stood up here in the city. Online reporting for both Wasilla Police Department and the Alaska State Troopers. The online reporting system for DPS is based out of Ketchikan, and they actually had the opportunity to go down there and visit them last fall. They've got a remarkable operation and an amazing crew down there that's hitting the ground running. They actually told us that about 80% of the online reports come out of the B detachment here in the Mat-Su, which is our dispatchers saying go file online rather than taking resources off the street. So you'll see probably from last year's budget and this one that our CAD incidents are decreasing, but that's going to be the reason for that. Not that our not that our call volume is decreasing because our phone call volume continues to rise, but the CAD incidents themselves are from diverting people to more appropriate resources. Over the last 12 to 18 months, I've been very contract busy. We renewed contracts with the Department of Public Safety on a 5-year model. They are annual renewals due to funding by the state legislature always being up in the air. Matsu Borough renewed their 911 and emergency services contract with MACCOM for the next 5 years. They still have another 5-year extension option after that. And we finished up the WPDEA contract negotiation. We secured contract for services for the City of Palmer Fire Department for inside the City of Palmer as well. It just made more sense. They were working out of 2 different dispatch centers on 2 different radio channels with 2 different CAD systems in the years leading up to that, so it just made sense to consolidate that. Chief Cameron over there at the City of Palmer Fire is very, very knowledgeable and experienced fire chief, and he made the whole process pretty seamless. We also renewed contract with City of Houston Fire Department for the next 2 years, and so I've got everything calmed down for now. So there's not very much affecting the budget here from this coming year as opposed to this last year, and that's mostly the reason for that is we have everything just the way we want it for now.
Yes.
Just a quick question. You and I had worked on that issue of consolidation across the state, and has that reared up again from administration to pursue that, or kind of are we calmed down in that arena and being able to stay in our area and not have to consolidate with whomever?
Yeah, Commissioner Cockrell took over as Department of Public Safety Commissioner in 2020, I believe. Might have been 2021. He went around and made everything really solid as far as the dispatch front goes. We've actually made leaps and bounds. They've got 3 different dispatch centers across the state right now, 2 of them being contracted. We're one of those. And he's been a very big proponent of let's take what already exists and build that out to the best possible capability that we can. I have gotten feedback from several patrol troopers that have been around the state, different detachments, and they say the MACCOM does the most administratively to help them out with their RMS system, entering their reports and technology and that sort of thing. So we've been fortunate to be able to leverage some of the tools that we have with technology to involve applications to put on your cell phone that connect to our CAD system to get call for service details, and be able to deploy that to the patrol troopers out here too. That was very minimal cost to us actually, and we're just continually looking at ways to find efficiencies, cut down on radio traffic, and make the whole process easier on all fronts.
Thank you.
Okay. We will start with account 10, personnel services. Account 20, personnel services benefit. Account 30, professional services.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Back up to 10, the large overtime budget, is that shorting the personnel?
That's because I got 5 kids and Christmas is expensive. Overtime has always been a hitter for dispatch, just due to the job itself. Nationwide, there's a shortage, just like all the other public safety departments, of personnel. MACCOM specifically, I've been there 17 years, and I can think of one stretch where we were fully staffed. Due to the complexity of the job, the shift work, the burnout, the emotional burnout, that sort of thing. The average career span for a dispatcher nationwide is about 2 to 2.5 years. And with our training program, especially with fire and EMS services that we've taken on over the last decade, it's becoming more and more difficult. We are heading in the right direction for sure. I would like to have said that we could accomplish this quicker, but due to some COVID complications, we weren't able to. But we've gotten our training program up from 2018 to 2019, it was about a 20% success rate in our training program, and we've gotten that up over the last 3 years. Now we're averaging 80% success rate through our training program, as well as the turnover retention rate for dispatch. In 2019, it was hovering about 40%, and over the last year and a half, we've got that down to about 14%. So we're headed in the right direction. The worst that I've seen it was 12 vacancies in dispatch. We're down to 5 right now. Part of that has to do with restructuring staffing, but also, as the chief mentioned, a lot of this has to do not necessarily with throwing money at the problem, but the culture that you're building inside the department. And so that's what we're really trying to focus in on. So hopefully we won't use all of that, but I wanted there just in case.
Yes.
Account 30, professional services. Account 40, purchased property.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
could we get just kind of a quick piece on, the reductions on cleaning, repair, and maintenance, and then the increase in computer software maintenance?
Yeah, so cleaning had to do with, I explored last year, we found a service that will come to the dispatch centers and do console cleaning from top to bottom, like from the ceiling lights all the way to the floor. What we have found personally crawling in there to replace PCs and wiring and stuff like that is just the absurd amount of dust and dirt that accumulates, especially in a building that's that old. So getting those professional cleaners in there to clean and scrub the consoles from top to bottom. I had originally budgeted for them to do that 4 times a year, but I quickly found out that was overkill. So having them come up once to twice a year is going to be perfect for us. It's actually made a huge difference for our people, especially the IT crew that has to get back there and replace monitors and PCs and stuff like that. It's a much better working environment. So as far as the repair and maintenance, I had a substantial increase in that fund last year to do a furniture refresh throughout the building. We replaced all the dispatch chairs, the heavy-duty 24/7, 365 chairs. We got conference table, training workstations, projector, and some extra supplies for the kitchen, like a new stove, microwave, that sort of thing. So that's where the reduction's coming from, is that was completed. Computer software and maintenance, you mentioned for an increase. What we're looking at there is we picked up an OTM cybersecurity contract to provide cybersecurity to our 911 network. Another trend that we're seeing across the country is cybersecurity threats on 911 centers, as they have recognized that as the hub of public safety response. Dallas just recently, this month actually, had their 911 system and their CAD system completely taken down or compromised. So it's important to remember when you're talking about moving forward with technology of keeping your different networks, especially with public safety, separate from each other, having one network for the 911 system, one network for the CAD system, one network for the medical and fire protocols, that sort of thing. That way if one gets compromised, it doesn't infect the whole thing and take everything down. Yeah, Dallas, their main police dispatch was back to pen and paper for dispatching, which I've never even done personally myself, so that would be a nightmare. We were able to get reimbursement secured through the Matsuboro E911 Advisory Fund for that. We had a little bit of extra money this year in our computer software and maintenance, so I upfronted the cost for the install in the first year, and the Matsuboro agreed to reimburse that moving forward for the cybersecurity. So,
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, Jacob.
a couple of the other increases I just wanted to note, one of those being the Solacom. Well, it's not necessarily an increase, but it was another $105,000 we secured from the Matsuboro E911 Advisory Board to go towards our Solacom contract for our 911 system. So the I think the budgeted amount for that was in the area of $122,000 or $126,000 for this upcoming year. I was able to get that $105,000 applied to our 5-year contract, so we're actually decreasing, well, the Solacom cost is going to decrease by about $25,000 this year. But the budget had already been in the works when that happened, so it is what it is. Also, our Central Square contract, I was able to get that trimmed down. They had historically been charging us a 5% increase annually to the overall contract due to some documentation issues and having to rewrite our contract. I was able to get us locked into 5 years with them with no increase over the 5 years. So we'll be seeing some good savings there as well.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay, account 50, other purchase services.
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
to Mr. Butcher. I see your travel, like more than doubled. Do you have something special going on this year?
I want to go to DC too.
You're fired, Jacob.
So I took over as communications manager in 2019. So FY20 budget had already been set. COVID happened in early 20. So we've never really had to deal with the travel budget. Aside from that, our staffing issues never allowed for travel, training, that sort of thing. And the other component to keep in mind while I'm discussing this is that most of our travel for training is reimbursed through the Mat-Su-Borough E911 Advisory Board. They have an item in their budget to reimburse both us and IG Base for travel needs. So now that we are at a point where our staffing levels are coming up, the world has reopened, they're having conferences and trainings, combined with the fact that like our head IT guy is the Alaska chapter president for Appro and NINA, which are both national organizations for telecommunications. I'm really pushing my supervisory staff to earn advanced education through the emergency number professional and center manager certification programs, as well as the registered public safety leadership programs. All of those do require some form of travel. So with that being said, the Mat-Su-Borough 911 Advisory Board, their travel budget is pretty small. Having discussed that with the board, we're looking at showing a need for the borough to increase that item in their budget, which would mean we need to start submitting all of our travel needs to them to try to drain that account. So I'm hoping to budget more this year, for professional development, for leadership development for my supervisors, but also to get the borough, to show the borough the need that we need to budget more on that side for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Account 60, supplies. Account 99, interfund transfers. Okay, any other questions for Jacob? Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to the cemetery fund on page 190. And
That's exciting.
it's 206 electronically.
Madam Mayor, I can speak to the cemetery fund.
Okay,
So this is a non-expendable fund. It is segregated in its own investment account. We are, by agreement for that endowment, can use the interest off that for the general maintenance and upkeep. And so we have $6,000 budgeted for interest income and $6,000 budgeted for supplies. The actual resources are funded by the Parks and Property Maintenance folks. In this year, you will see a CIP project that proposes to modify the roadway, in which case it would increase the number of plots available, which currently there are none available. Additionally, in this fund, we do budget for plot buybacks. So while all the plots have been sold, not all of them have been utilized, and so often there are people that have a change of mind, and that allows us to buy those plots back. Otherwise, there's no significant changes to the cemetery fund.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
The city manages all the plots. So other places that I've been, they are looking at managing the cemeteries, and they are looking at double burials, sometimes triple burials. Is that, because you said there's no more lots available. Have the city looked at implement that program?
You know, I'm not aware. I don't know if the clerks, based on demand, if that's been a request.
So currently, you can have 2 interments in one lot. You can have an unlimited amount of cremains in one lot. And we have about 20 people on the waiting list, and they all are interested in purchasing 1 to 10 lots. But we do have a few spaces left in our columbarium.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the cemetery fund? Hearing none. Non-departmental, it's page 136 and 152.
Mayor, I can give just a general overview. So these non-departmentals are sort of like your omnibus, the kind of catch-all, not really part of like your normal operations or very segmented items.
Okay. So different ones will speak to different. Okay, we will start with account 80. Account 97. Account 99, interfund transfers.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Could we get a description on this with the increase for the capital projects fund?
Okay. Eric? Joan?
So tonight in the next session, we will be talking about capital projects. And so this is either funding those capital projects, which is the 9.1 million I had noted in the introduction of the presentation for the budget. And then as well, there are also capital projects that we expect to be funded through a grant either from the EPA or the Matsu Borough.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions on account 99, interfund transfers? Okay, hearing none. We're moving on to the debt service fund, page 191, and electronically 207.
The city currently has no debt, and there is no debt plan for 2024.
Okay, thank you. Capital Projects Fund, page 197, 213.
Madam Mayor, Council, since I have the bulk of the CIP requests, I'll talk to all of them.
Okay,
Do you want me to just go down the list that starts on
Just-
198?
start with general government. Hey, does anybody have questions on the general government?
What page are you on?
Well, we could either be on 197 or 198.
Whichever one you want to do, Eric.
I propose 198 if that's appropriate with the council.
That's helpful.
Great.
Okay.
So the comprehensive plan is a plan through planning, kind of under Ms. Nygaard's purview. It's required on a rotational basis, and so you can see that there is a few years of funding projected. We're talking about, of course, fiscal year 24, but the way this page is laid out, the way all of these are going to be laid out is discussing at least a few years into the future, up to 5, depending on the life of each project, depending on the, if we need to forward fund it. Some of them are immediate funding, some of them are building an account to be ready for a few years in the future. So the comp plan is used with land use regulations, and it has to be updated as the city changes and as zonings change. And I defer any specifics to Crystal if she wants to weigh in on what this round of the comp plan adjustment is going to entail.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just really quickly. So when did we last update our comprehensive plan? Is it cyclical, like every, 8 years, 10 years or something?
The last one was 2010, and
Okay,
it's
that's what I
every
thought.
10 years.
Thanks. I think I worked on that one.
If there's no other questions, next one is a lobbyist. There was a little bit of discussion about this at last night's meeting. Of course, this goes to state and federal legislative sessions, provides us the interface that we're looking for to bring Wasilla's needs across the board to our elected delegations, to our governor, and any official that we think will help us make progress in those. And we were able to fund the initial lobbyist support this year by pooling together our funds. And so this is codifying a more complete and direct coverage with the lobbyist this year. You can see that it is only seeking for this current fiscal year. I suspect if that we see the same success and the satisfaction is shared by the council, that this will either become another CIP or it may become an operational budget within someone's budget in the city.
Okay. Any questions on the lobbyist? Electronic records management project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is kind of a sister project with a project that I'll talk about in a little bit, but the clerks are, of course, our records management authorities. And so we have records that we have to keep forever. We have records that have lifespans to them. And so sometimes lifespans have to do with storage, and sometimes it has to do with sensitive information, such as personnel information. So there are requirements to either keep it for a certain amount of time or destroy it after a certain amount of time. And the rules are always being refined, and in today's age, it's important to keep track of those effectively. So this is a request to purchase a records management system. It's referred to as an electronic records management system, or ERMS, and it organizes and stores those records and helps us to meet the requirements so that we have the right documents and we destroy the right documents at the right time. The reason it's a sister project is there's a desire to rearrange some of the facilities, especially in the Public Works office. I have a lot of records, and I need some assistance in going through that and housing them properly so that I can actually free up space for that new project management position. But also because my wing of the City Hall is pretty inefficient. It has a lot of storage compartments. A lot of that was damaged or nearly damaged with the building effects of the earthquake and the windstorm a couple years ago. So we're really vulnerable to physical site damage with our records, having to do with utilities to properties. When you buy a piece of property and you pay PILAs or payment in lieu of, we have those records for decades and decades, making sure that we know that you paid your sewer tax and stuff like that. So we have a lot of long-lived documents that we need to house properly, and I dare say that the clerks have been waiting a long time for us to get on board. And so for us to make the changes in office locations and to come in line with the records retention, this is an important project for us too. So the clerk and I had worked together on the explanation and the 2-year funding horizon to provide the necessary monies to secure a program that they've had their eye on for a little while.
I have a question on this. So in years past, the clerk's office, Sarah, you'll have to remind me if my history is correct or not, but we had started a program with regard to records management, and I believe we put in several hundred thousands of dollars into that particular records management system, and it failed. So I'm wondering, here we are kind of at step one again, right? And we went over the clerk's budget a couple months ago. We didn't talk about this. I mean, we talk about records management and, you know, files that are in boxes stored elsewhere, but we hadn't talked about this component. So I'm just trying to figure out, I don't want to repeat what happened in the past. So what are we looking at for systems that will meet what it is that you're wanting to get right this time, I guess? And I'm not digging at you at all, please know.
That's
I'm
okay,
not.
I wasn't.
I just know the history of this.
Yes, your memory's 100% correct. And we are looking into software that other municipalities, especially in Alaska, are using. A specific company that's been around a long time. And we are diligently researching. Deputy Administrator's been helping us, and Steve in IT has been helping us, and Eric has been helping us. We've been attending software demonstrations. So we're really excited about,
Okay.
if I can say, it's Laserfish.
Okay, very good.
And it's exciting because it integrates with other systems. It integrates with GIS, CRM, ERP systems, and Sitka's. Sitka just got it, and they're using it. The representative that we spoke with is a city clerk, so we've been going to conferences and speaking with her. We're really excited.
Okay.
'Cause we can apply
Yeah,
our.
I mean, I'll watch it closely. You know, I support you and I
Yes.
support this endeavor. I do. I wanted to bring to light what had happened in the past, and we lost out on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm just trying to be.
You're correct, and that was a new company called Sire, and they were
right.
bought out by a different company.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, our support was just lost. And I personally put in a lot of work, and it was really frustrating. I went to conferences, I put in a lot of work in the records room, and so it was really disheartening. But we're back, and we're ready, and we're excited, and we have support. We have IT support now that we haven't had in the past.
Well, and the fact that you have that history too.
Yes.
You know what you put in, you know
Yes.
what works, what doesn't, so that makes me feel better. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you've identified some of the pitfalls that a good team can try to reduce the risk on. So it takes real project management to maintain your daily tasks and stand up a new system, so it's not to be taken lightly. But there's a bunch of really good advancements that have been made with the understanding. I think one thing that really is important to know is you need to find suppliers that are going to stick around. They're not going to get purchased by someone bigger and then drop that segment of their company. And so the procurement process, if this is a pass, will be structured to reduce risk as much as possible and have that project succeed. And you talked about the timing of this. The clerk and I worked on it after it was clear that I couldn't meet my other project's needs if I don't have somewhere to put my files. And so I can't move ahead on some office readjustments that I need if I don't support the clerks. And so I think it's a very well-rounded team that needs this to succeed. So
Sounds good. Crystal, did you want to say something? Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
I just wanted to mention that we signed an agreement with the borough. It's a technology partnering agreement, and that gives us access to some of the more specialized mapping features, and they become really great resource for, can we integrate this? And so maybe back when you're looking at records, you don't have access to some of the more specialized licenses like ESRI, and so that's part of this partnering strategy that we have, is to reach out and use some of those more expensive tools that we might have to integrate into the files.
Perfect.
All right, moving on to equipment replacement.
So this is for the IT department, and it's broken down into $25,000 for network switches, $20,000 for UPS replacement and batteries, which are the battery backups, keep your computer from turning off if the power dims or if the power goes out, gives you time to save. And then storage, NTAP, SAN, I have no idea what that is. Data recovery, oh, thank you. Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen, just talking with Steve, is that, we've saved a lot in physical infrastructure by restructuring to kind of the more standard splitting of on-site storage with cloud-based storage, where providers put in the time and energy to have redundancy outside of our building. So we still do have some physical equipment needs, and so this is his request for ongoing support of that.
GIS Asset Mapping and Management System.
This is a program that dovetails to what Crystal talked about. We had the opportunity to apply for a Smart City grant in November, I think. So a month in, we're applying for a grant when I first got here. And we talked a little bit about GIS last night. The value of identifying the city's assets is so incredibly important. It's a little hard to know where to start. Councilmember Rubio had a great point tonight talking about what is the right use for the Menard Center. Do we look at keeping the ice, or do we talk about a basketball system? That's a executive level discussion where the executives have the information. They can look at what brings value, what brings revenue, what makes what meets the goal of the executive team. So the GIS asset management system is an executive asset management system which allows us to quantify what assets the city has and where we have risk and how we can make long-term decisions with that. So I'll give you an example. We talked about snow removal. We want to quantify how many lane miles of roads we have, and then we can make correlations between our response time, our equipment and personnel needs. If we, when we rebuild the couplet, that's going to change dramatically a good portion of our road system. We don't technically own or maintain Main Street yet. We will maintain it after we receive it from the state. So we'll see an increase in maintenance needs. It's important to quantify that, and it's important to understand how it works with our current processes, current equipment. And so they say you measure what you treasure. And so we need to be able to identify what we have and then plan ahead for it. One useful tool we have right now is you can look at our insurance policy and you can say that the city has an asset portfolio of somewhere above 200 million, I think is what I remember. So if you look at it as an executive and you say, I have an asset of 250, 220 million, what do I need to return as investment every year to maintain that at its current state? If I'm going to expand into some facility, what kind of pressure is that going to place? And so a huge aspect of that is the mapping side. And right now I have paper maps. And so if you were to ask me, please quantify how many miles of sidewalk do we have, it would take me an extremely long time. And it would only be accurate to today, because if I change anything, I'll have to go back in and add those maps up, and you could have, spreadsheets, and it's just ineffective. The new tool is GIS, and it actually touches on MATCOM's activities. So they use the GIS system to know addresses, and there's a discussion about multiple addresses on one lot. How does fire and EMS respond if there's 2 or 3 houses or an outbuilding? Or, there's some large parcels with multiple places on it. AST wants to show up to the right house if they think they have a violent suspect that they need to talk to. So knowing that data and having it at your fingertips is expected. And so this request is to allow us to start that project. As I mentioned last night, it would build upon the framework that the Matsu Borough has started and that we have that agreement with, and it allows us to house our data, collect our data, organize our data, and use it in ways that other municipalities are using it now, but also in ways we haven't really considered at this point. So it's an exciting opportunity, if it's funded, to really step into the 21st century with many, many other municipalities across the country.
Maintain X upgrade.
When I first arrived, there was the Public Works and IT department were working with a consultant to identify a short list of asset management or computer CMMS, computer maintenance management systems. And so they were given a initial budget, and there was 3 or 4 suppliers that met that budget, and so MaintainX was selected. It is a program, it's a web-based program that allows us to open work orders and organize them by task group and keep records, and it's been very, very successful. So if you live in the city and you have a sewer system with us and you come home and the little red light on your pump station is blinking and you call us, we initiate a work order, and then our team responds to that and keeps track of what they need to do. And so, or if you have a pothole and you let us know, we respond and we make a work order. What that has already allowed us to do is identify, especially on the utility side, identify facilities that are causing us a lot more time and responses, in the same way that WPD keeps track of problem addresses that they respond to a lot that needs more care and feeding. So in the last couple months, we've been able to identify some car washes that seem to be having too many emergency calls, homes that seem to be having too many sewer freeze-up calls, and that allows us to run reports that we've never been able to run before when it was just paper in a file that got filed away. And if the file grew so thick you could see it across the room, you might go over and figure out what's going on. But other than that, you really didn't have a way of running reports. Another thing that we've put into the MaintainX system is the daily checks that we do, especially within utilities. So we're looking at water and sewer systems, and we're recording that, and so we can see when there's some sort of systemic problem with a water tower that maybe has a leak, and so the water level's not the right level anymore, or the pump that fills it is running more. It just really helps us to have that situational awareness of what's going on. This request is just to add some capabilities to the MaintainX system, because we did start out at kind of the introductory level to get our toe wet, and it's working so well that there's a few more features that we'd like to fund, and so that's what this request is about.
Okay. Metropolitan Planning Organization for Transportation.
At the May 8th meeting, I think it was, we had that presentation by the borough planner. This is funding the initial membership dues to join the MPO. And so this is based on a rough ratio of $5 per person who lives within the city of Wasilla. And that's just under 50,000, it's just under 10,000, so 10,000 times $5 is 50,000. That's kind of the working number that they have for the membership dues.
MS4 program.
This is a program that will come upon us because of our urbanization designation. And so this will require that we start to permit, monitor, and report on our stormwater management systems. It's pretty in-depth. There's about 10 features to it, but a lot of it is mapping. So it touches back to the GIS system. We have to know where all of our outfalls are. We have to know what bodies of water our stormwater goes to. So Lake Lucille, Wasilla Lake are two very important ones, Cottonwood Creek. And then we have to test them every so often, and we have to do reporting on all of this. We also have to have public outreach where we try to help people understand what their impacts are on stormwater. And then we also have programmatic monitoring and reporting that we have to do. So snow removal is a really good example. We plow the snow, and have you ever seen a plow go by? They kind of spark because they're pushing pretty hard on the road. So we're making dust, we're making grit, and we're adding sand for traction. All of that ends up in our storm systems. All of that might eventually migrate into Lake Lucille, for instance. So knowing that, as the EPA does as well, we will be required to kind of take an account of what our snow removal looks like and how much sand we're putting down and how much we're picking up. And so that in turn kind of brings us down a more inclusive sweeping program. So as soon as the snow stops falling, we go back out and start picking up our sand, and we start planning for cleaning out the ditches, sucking out the basins in the more urbanized downtown core, and trying to remove the sand, gravel, and pollutants that have collected all winter long. And while that is kind of a typical operation that we do anyway, there is a pretty strict and continual reporting that we have to do. And so we're going to need support in that, and we're going to need to map some things that we don't have mapped. And it will be a program that we have to maintain going forward because unless something major happens, we'll be urbanized from here on out.
Stormwater improvement projects.
This is physically rebuilding, replacing, installing, and adding structures and facilities that are required coming out of our MS4 program. So if we have new roads that we need to add storm drains to, or as we are working on some of our road paving projects, this is a funding mechanism to address the structures that are going to be required as we continue to develop our stormwater system.
Street vacuum and sweep truck.
This is a equipment request for the streets department. The reason it's in this fiscal year is because it takes a year or more to get them. So by the time we're up and running with our MS4, I'm pretty positive we'll know that we have more sweeping to do. The sweeper that we have right now is fine for maintenance of a road that's already been swept, but our spring startup requires us to go ahead of that sweeper with brooms and a water truck and really get the bulk of the winter gravel off of the road first, and then this can maintain that. The new machine that Streets has asked for has a bit more horsepower to break through the initial spring cleanup, and will also double our sweeping ability. Right now, we don't tend to sweep south of the Parks Highway. We use Dipper, our contractor, and they have an interesting arrangement. the way Keith lines it up is they both start at the same time, and whoever finishes first comes to the other side and helps. And Dipper has been beating them lately, so we know that we have quite a bit of work on the north side, and so this is to help us prepare for that extra sweeping that we know is coming.
Okay, electronic message board.
This is another request from Rhodes. We have one message board right now. You see some of Granite's out on KGB right now, letting you know what they're doing. One is not enough if you have a two-way street. So we need a second one so that we can meet the safety requirements for flagging operations along two-way streets. So we can have one on both sides of the construction zone.
Street lighting LED improvements.
This is an ongoing project to reduce our electric costs by replacing city-maintained streetlights with LEDs. So we can buy fewer as the prices go up, but this is kind of an ongoing project. There is a possibility that it falls off before fiscal year 27. I don't have a full count on how many we have to replace still, but there's still a few years of replacements in the horizon, and then we'll be fully LED.
KGB Phase 1 utility relocation.
This is a request for additional monies because of our match requirement for the KGB project. It's a DOT project, but there are some portions that are within the city and involve city city infrastructure. It's a percentage of cost share, and so the construction cost was a little higher than initially budgeted for. So this addresses that shortfall, and that's the explanation.
Town site restoration.
This has been an ongoing funding request through property maintenance in conjunction with the museum. And so there are, of course, historic buildings that are in different levels of, I won't say deterioration, but need different levels of support. And there are some roofs that need to be replaced, and there's some improvements to restrooms and pavilions. So it's working through the property maintenance side of the support at the town site.
Quick question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
With regard to the town site, it's really just a unique little historical piece right in the heart of Wasilla. Have we looked at ways to maybe rent it out for weddings or events at all? I mean, I'd asked that in years past and didn't get much enthusiasm for it, but what's interesting is wedding venues go all the way down to the end of Kinnick-Goose Bay Road to have really beautiful weddings in a barn. Well, our town site is exquisite, it's beautiful. You've got restaurants on the other side of it. I'm just wondering, has that been a thought process at all from anyone besides me?
I know that the director has goals on making it more accessible. I think, if I recall some of her explanations, there are ADA concerns, and so this money would allow it to be more accessible and more useful. And I know that there are ideas for having events there. She did mention tonight that events are kind of taking a back burner, but I think that's because she doesn't have quite the facility that she would like for that. So this would go towards making it more ADA accessible so that she can have more events in the future.
Okay, very good.
Public Works office renovations.
So this is the other project that I was alluding to. We have quite a bit of storage space that is hopefully going to be redundant when we move through the records project. And so there is a wing that needs to be reorganized and have it be outfitted so that it's more effective as office space, providing us the layout that is more useful. There's also some desire to address some access concerns with the building and having the door by my office be more of the initial door that users enter to, because most of the business is for finance or public works, and so we want to make that end of the building noticeably the official entrance that most of the public uses.
Train station improvements Phase 2.
there is a high-level master plan that I've seen for the train depot, and we are starting this spring with some of the first work for the parking lot around the relocated train depot building. This is moving us forward to planning the full build-out. So this fiscal year 24 request is to give us some funds to hire a consultant and start to solidify the plans so that we can move into construction. And so fiscal 25 and 26 are anticipated construction funds so that we can complete that facility and be ready for the railroad traffic that we anticipate there.
Parking lot striping.
This funding request has kind of fallen on facility maintenance and parks within their operating budget. After looking at their workload and their funding constraints, we have enough parking lots within city facilities that I thought it made sense for us to put some funding directly towards that. And it would likely either hire a contractor. I've noticed a lot of contractors running around right now repainting people's striping in dentists and lots and all that. Or it would allow us to buy a small man-operated painter ourselves. But we have a lot of parking lots that need to be refreshed, and so I just wanted to make this a directly funded option so that our parking lots look a little better and serve the public as best as they can.
City Hall excess improvements.
This is kind of tied into the Public Works Office renovations, but this is funding to look at technologies for probably key card access to portions of City Hall to control access for customers and staff, and have certain areas that you'd have to access with a badge. This is kind of stepping into the 21st century, getting away from keys, because we know that keys get lost. And you sign the waiver that if you lose your key, you have to rekey the whole building, but that never happens. And it's a problem for people that leave service at the city. And I inherited a whole drawer of keys from Archie, so I don't know where any of them go. So, and we see this with other other governmental buildings within the Matsu Borough. If you go to the borough's office, they have key cards and they have access door controls, and the WPD has the same. So it's funding to join them.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
could I get a 5-minute break?
I guess.
So we talked about the town site. So this is for the museum building, and it has to do with upgrades partially required by the Couplet project because it touches that. And then also making a public space between the two buildings that right now is asphalt and not really useful. So the little paragraph outlines the gist of what this 2-year funded project would do. It makes several important updates around the museum.
Okay, park improvements.
So this is to identify that the parks have ongoing but differing needs, and so this would be used for improvements to trails, pathways, lighting, turf irrigation, and other amenities to support the parks. And so it also would help us to prepare for the replacement of the Wonderland Park features. They're close to the end of their safe and useful life.
Lake Lucille campground improvements.
So the campground continues to be the jewel of the city. It's kind of underused and it needs some help. So we'd like to improve its amenities by adding a dump station, additional campsites, trails, and other facility improvements to make it even more enjoyable for locals and visitors.
Newcomb Park restroom.
The Newcomb Park restroom is small and gross and needs to be replaced. And it actually fills up with snow. The drifting off of Wasilla Lake filled it completely with snow this winter. It had some roof damage, and Newcomb Park is extremely popular, full to the gills during a nice day. And so it does not meet the public's need for a clean, safe, and large enough restroom. And so this is an ask that we fund that this fiscal year and get going on a new updated facility.
Trackless sweeper and blower.
So I don't know if you've ever seen a trackless sweeper, but if you've ever seen, we have an old one, but if you ever see DOT with a little single cab articulated blower or sweeper on a sidewalk, that's what this is. It's a versatile double season motorized vehicle that sweeps and cleans during the summer, and it has a snow blower during the winter. And this is useful for all of the park and sidewalks, but it's also going to be very versatile for the couplet project because we will have separated sidewalks. Typical process has been to plow a sidewalk out off into the street and then a grader comes and gets it. The couplet will have sidewalks that are away from the street, and so we'll need to be able to maintain those sidewalks for businesses and handle that more effectively. So this is a versatile sidewalk cleaning machine.
Equipment replacement.
This is a replacement mower for the Parks Department, one every 3 years. They have at least 4 mowers, and the last 3 were purchased at the same time, and they're all meeting the end of their useful life with maintenance and just wearing out. So this is to replace a mower once every year for the next 3 years.
Park improvement city match funds.
We are often able to leverage city funds with park grants either through the borough or other outdoor recreation firms or entities, excuse me. So this is monies to set aside to be able to match those funding opportunities when they come up. We've been able to use them for improvements to tennis courts, pathway extensions, pathway paving, and so we've made very good use of these monies over the years, and so this is to continue to leverage those opportunities.
Cemetery improvements.
This is the road realignment that we discussed. There are several access, they're not roads, they're driving lanes or dirt paths basically that access the cemetery, and staff has identified an area where we don't need vehicle access and we could move in some fill and make another area of approximately 30 new plots. And if there's any funding remaining after that, it's possible that we look at another columbarium to add more plots.
Maureen McCombs Trail.
This is an ongoing extension and improvement to the McCombs Trail system.
Vehicle replacement.
So this touches all of the public works vehicles, and so we have 24 pickup trucks, I believe, and some other light equipment, and so they require replacement on a regular basis, and so this is funding to keep that vehicle replacement fund at a level where we can make those replacement purchases in a timely manner.
Vehicle replacement administration mayor.
So this is specifically a vehicle replacement for the mayor's office, and so it would replace the red Tahoe, which would then be moved within the fleet of the city. So we wouldn't lose a vehicle, we would just add it to the fleet, and eventually the lowest and most expensive to maintain vehicle would drop off.
Okay, and vehicle replacement for public safety.
So this is for the chief, and if you had specific questions, I'm sure you can answer them, but this is basically the same that we discussed for Public Works. This keeps the vehicle replacement fund at the level it needs to be so that replacement vehicles can be purchased in a timely manner.
Quick question, please.
Yeah.
Okay, just so I understand the history on this, so we just approved new Tahoes, right? For
One.
no, but prior I thought we had looked at several replacements. So is this part of that, or did we already change over? Because we already changed over several vehicles, right? Sorry, whomever.
I'll defer to the chief.
Or
Just
John.
want to clarify that the vehicle replacement for the chief is not for my specific $400,000 vehicle.
Oh. I didn't think that.
No, it is part of our replacement plan. We are currently getting caught up. The plan was to order, I'm going back from memory, what was inherited when I started was 6, 5, and then 6 again. And then this is gonna be part of that last batch. And then after that, it should be a much smaller replacement procedure to replace. We won't have to replace so many at such a short amount of time.
And what did we just replace then? I think, Joan, you were gonna, if you don't mind, Chief.
Yes, so on Monday night, council approved the purchase of one Tahoe that came available that was surplus from another agency. So you will be seeing an amendment come forward to reduce this budget by that amount.
And then didn't we already purchase other Tahoes though?
Those were purchased from the 2023 budget.
Right, and how many did we replace in that?
6.
6, thank you.
And then plus the new one is 7.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Easement right-of-way funds.
So this is ongoing funding for the purchase of easements in usually like road reconstruction projects. And so we'll identify where the right-of-way is too narrow for some reason and we need to run utilities, or we need to run drainage, or we need to put a cul-de-sac or something. And so this allows us to manage that right-of-way acquisition and make that affected property owner whole by purchasing it. We see this a lot with DOT. They'll buy easements from us to do the main street couplet project, for instance. So this is just a fund that earmarks it for that use only.
City street paving project.
This is a continuation of the initiative to pave all city streets by the fiscal year 2025. And so we have a working number of about $1 million of paving a year. It's about the max that we can handle. And so this funds that through 2025. But in all reality, there's going to be some side cul-de-sacs that need repaving, and we're going to move into some pavement replacement projects as well. Cars and graders and heavy equipment and stuff are always wearing down our roads. So while everything may be paved by fiscal year 25, we'll definitely have to circle back and fix some roads that have fallen apart by then.
Alaska Railroad crossing improvements.
This is a requirement that we have with the railroad where we have permits to cross with our streets, and we have to reimburse the railroad for the maintenance and routine inspections of those crossings. So it's a fee that we pay yearly, and that's what you can see reflected in the 5-year outlook.
Fern Street culvert replacement.
I believe it was in 2018, the Matsu Borough did a big levy initiative, put out a bunch of projects for the voters to approve, and Fern Street was one of them. They have since, the money that was allocated to that project isn't going as far as it would have in 2018. So basically, cost escalations have reduced the construction budget. The right-of-way on Fern is very narrow, and so they have a lot of right-of-way issues with impacts to the neighbors. And Cottonwood Creek Crossing is in the city of Wasilla. And so at the risk of losing that project or delaying that project by another year and then seeing the value don't diminish because of continued cost escalations in construction, we've taken on the partnership with the borough to find funding to improve that culvert. The culvert is too narrow. It's on the Fish and Game's list of impairment, or what am I trying to say? It impacts fish movement. But because of that, we've also applied for a grant. And so we're hopeful that the grant will cut the cost to us by 50%, but this funding is if we don't receive the grant. And the outlook is that it would be paid in full by fiscal year '25. So we would be adding $175,000 this year and another $175,000 next year to be ready to pay for our portion when Fern is reconstructed.
Riley Avenue matching funds.
Riley Avenue is currently a dirt road that runs to the Lake Lucille Park, and then it connects to KGB via a connector. I forget the name of that street. It is on our wish list with DOT that they would join us and improve that road. They own a huge parcel right there. They plan on putting one of their biggest shops, their road maintenance shops there. But we want to construct a pedestrian pathway when they hopefully pave the road for us, because of we're offering it as an option for alternative access when KGB is most disrupted during their rebuild project. So we're pressuring them to upgrade it, and then we want to put the pedestrian access that that area really needs. So this is funding that project.
Information technology equipment.
You can see that the request for this year is $104,000, but it's based on replacement of end-of-life technology, and so there's an estimation of 40 computers, 3 servers, 7 laptops to be replaced, and then there is just like fleet, there's a rotation schedule for computers, and so the future requests are also listed there.
Wastewater treatment plant improvements.
Thankfully, this is a grant. So this project is expected to be funded through the EPA. This is money through Senator Murkowski's office. The scope on this has to do with our sludge management. So it has to do with taking the sludge out of the lagoons and properly dewatering it and then disposing of it properly. And it helps our sludge capacity issue, because right now we are required to pump the septic tanks out of for our customers, and we're only able to do half as many as we need to. We're falling way behind in capacity, and so this will help us in some of those needs. It also has some ammonia treatment scope to it as well, and that has to do with our the water that we discharge from the sewer treatment plant.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So are we still trucking excess waste then into Anchorage still?
We don't technically truck it, but when we can't meet the needs of our customers, they have to pay local companies to truck it in Anchorage, yes.
I know Anchorage isn't happy about that. They've said that over the years, but so would the expansion of this then help to alleviate that, do you think?
Yes, so these funds would not, they would not expand the facility that takes our sludge, but it would help us to remove the sludge in that facility. I don't know if you've ever seen photos of our sewer treatment plant, but we have 2 big ponds and
Yeah, I've been in there.
Okay.
I've seen it.
So that has sludge at the bottom of it, which isn't good. It's not good for the system. We need to get that out of there. And so what they used to have to do is drain the whole lagoon and put people and machines in it. And it's slippery and it's not made for people. So this money would help initially by purchasing a dredge that floats on the surface, and it has an arm that reaches down and no one's on it, and it's remote controlled, and it moves back and forth like a huge pool skimmer and sucks the sludge out of the pond, and then it pumps it up to a system on the shore that dewaters it, and it's kind of like a filter, and so it makes it much safer and much more efficient than the current system that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Wastewater treatment plant improvements, city match.
So this is, Joan, is this the 30 million? Is this the match for that, or is it for the 5.7? Okay, yeah, so we do have a match component for the 5.7 from Murkowski, so this is just illustrating that requirement as a separate line item.
Wastewater treatment plant expansion.
So this is monies to help us get started with the expansion that we kind of talked about, where we are not able to receive all of the sewage and effluent from our customers, and so we need to have a plan moving forward. We have some really preliminary ideas from a few years ago when they did the last kind of master plan for the wastewater treatment plant. Regulations have changed, there's some newer technologies, and so this initial $250,000, if approved, would start that RFP and consultant selection process to formulate the plan that we move forward with, and so the future funding would provide construction monies for that.
Septic tank replacement.
So we have a STEP program in the city where your sewage flows into a septic tank, and then solids sit there, and then it overflows into a little pump vault, and then that pump pumps it into our system. And so those tanks have a finite life. If they're coated steel, they are lucky to make it 25 years. If they're plastic, they last a lot longer, and they last a lot longer if they're concrete. We have a lot of steel tanks because they're cheap, and so we're facing a tidal wave of failed tanks, and that brings a lot of problems for our customers, and it brings a lot of problems and risk to us for the EPA for sewage leaking out of those tanks. We've initiated an inspection process this summer already, or this spring, where we're identifying tanks that have us most worried. This is an ongoing funding request so that we can continue to inspect and replace those tanks and try to get ahead of the failures that kill pumps, cause EPA violations, and cause heartaches to our customers.
Sewer system maintenance and repair.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, just a
Oh,
quick
sorry.
question. How many tanks do you anticipate then being able to replace this year?
Well, it does depend on their location and the size. I would say that an average tank replacement, if for a normal home, not big facilities, but a normal home is going to be at least $20,000. So, $275,000 or $200,000 is roughly 10 to 12 tanks per year.
Okay, but you haven't identified those yet then?
Correct. We're working on that list.
Okay, thanks.
Sewer system maintenance and repairs.
So this is a line item that identifies that we have mainline issues, manholes and pumps that fail. We don't have a lot of neighborhood lift stations, but there's one next to the mayor's house that had a failure this winter. And so when they go down, they affect a lot of users. And so, preventative maintenance and planning is key, because we can't have people living in their homes if they don't have sewer service. So this is to plan and prepare for those important deferred maintenance issues that we're seeing.
Pumper truck replacement.
Our pumper truck that we use now is getting pretty old, and they're having some problems with it, and they are using the older backup pumper truck more and more. And so this is a replacement that was in the budget package last year. It was shown as being on this year's funding request, so we still have the need, and so it's been brought forward this year.
Forklift replacement.
This is the same idea. Last year it was identified they needed a forklift, and so the request still remains, and so it's on this year's request.
Wastewater treatment plant control system.
So the wastewater treatment plant was built in the late 80s, and it has had almost no control updates to it. So while we move ahead with the design of a newer facility someday in the future, it's at immediate risk of component failure that we just don't have funding set aside for right now. So this is identifying monies to bring in consultants that are locally based and help us identify the most at-risk components and get the resiliency brought back into that system so we don't have failures that knock us offline for weeks.
Security cameras and repairs.
So this is a sewer-specific request in that the facility there doesn't have enough security camera coverage, and what cameras they do are older. And so this is to provide oversight and security camera provisions at the wastewater plant.
Wasilla Palmer Waterline Quick Connect Project.
This is an interesting collaboration with the Matsu Borough and the City of Palmer. It's a grant that we volunteered to oversee, but it basically has portions of systems for us as well as Palmer, and then there's an interconnect. And the gist of the project is that we're not too far from Palmer with our water system down by the hospital. And so we have redundancy issues where Palmer has basically an unlimited water source because of where their wells are located along the river. And so we've been able to identify that we can both strengthen each other's systems if we can work together to connect them. And so this is that program.
Lead and Copper Rule Program.
This is an interesting requirement because we are not really at risk from it, but if you think of Flint, Michigan and their water issues, the EPA has said that all cities, all utilities of any size, have to know what their water distribution systems are made of, what products, what materials. Because in older cities, they did have alloys that had high lead concentrations, and that leaches into the water. So the EPA is requiring that we identify all of our materials and know exactly what material a water service is made of from the main line to the house. And while we probably won't be required to go in and replace any lines, other cities will. They'll have to have a whole replacement schedule and say, we're going to do 1,000 water lines a year and we're just going to take 20 years to catch up on it, but we'll get to it eventually. We still have to meet the recording and reporting requirements of the EPA, and so that's not a system that we are used to. And so the request is to, we're going to need some consultant help, we're going to need to build a framework, and then we're going to have ongoing inspection and reporting requirements because of the new EPA rules for drinking water.
Yes.
With regard to the support that we're receiving from Senator Murkowski for our water and sewer systems, do we have an additional list that EPA has attached to our projects that we'll have to see for compliance? I don't think that this is part of that, but I imagine that the list is relatively long from EPA, and what do you anticipate on that?
Well, that's an interesting question because while we have received the notification from Murkowski's office, we are still waiting on the actual programs that we'll be working under, and we expect that in September. And so that'll be a very interesting discussion because the involved federal agencies will come to us and say, okay, we just heard you got this funding. Here's the program you're going to work within. Here's our guidelines. And so we don't have clarity on that yet. So this probably will touch some of those. This was identified, and we were talking about this before we got news from Murkowski that she was successful. So it's all touching each other, but it's all kind of nebulous at this point.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, water systems repairs.
The water system is always at constant risk of failure, and so after a water line is installed, there's a warranty period, and then failures are on us to replace. And so we're always looking for and replacing sections of water line that have failed. It's amazing how much water is wasted even in small leaks, and so it's very prudent and necessary for the health of the system to have the available funding to respond to leaks as quickly as possible. We have leak detection systems. It's an auditory system. We wear headphones and we connect to fire hydrants so we can hear the leak underground. We just found a small leak today. And so we want to get out and identify those leaks sooner, and this funding allows us to look for them and replace them, whereas right now we're very, very reactionary. We don't know about it till we see stuff bubbling out of the ground.
Okay, new water towers.
As we've discussed previously, any more growth in most of the city requires more fire water. Fire Marshal's made it very clear in several areas that he won't sign any more letters of occupancy until we can prove that we have the water to fight fires. So this is the start of the request for building several new water towers.
Remote sensing and security cameras.
We identified some weaknesses with the 2022 windstorm and the one that we had last year. We don't have enough sensors at our water towers to identify when the heat has gone out or when the tank levels are too low. And so this is funding to add those sensors so that we have better awareness of the state of those facilities during the middle of the night and during storms.
Mission Hills fire hydrants.
This is an ongoing project where we're extending the fire hydrant connections down to the Mission Hills properties. And so this has been the last couple of years we've been able to add a few fire hydrants. The number of fire hydrants we can add seems to go down with the 50,000 amount, but we can get 3 or 4 fire hydrants per year with this funding.
Fire hydrant protection project.
This is a new initiative to protect the existing fire hydrants with replacement bollards if they've been damaged or if they don't have any to add them. It's very costly to have a vehicle or something take out a fire hydrant. Sometimes it's by accident with graders and stuff, but a lot of times it's vehicle accidents. And so we want to protect those expensive pieces of infrastructure with bollards.
Oversized water main line fund.
This is an interesting opportunity where if we have a development that is going to put in a water line, but we see value in making it a little larger, the unit cost of going from an 8-inch to a 12-inch water line is not that much. The pipe doesn't cost that much more. So we use that fund to ask that developer to make it larger, and we bear the cost of the expanded size with this fund.
Airport maintenance equipment.
So the airport has its own maintenance building and it has its own equipment. A lot of that equipment has to reside there by the FAA's rules that it stays with the airport. There is a need at the airport to have some skid steer attachments. So we've identified a snow blower, a sweeper, a mower, and a brush. And this allows them to be more responsive and nimble with the different seasonal activities out there. The snowblower kind of led the discussions because they have found that in certain weather events, the lights along the runway and along the taxiways are warm enough that they melt some snow and then they make lens of ice. And if the plow catches them right, it shears the whole light off. And so they need a bit of a more nimble, effective attachment to carefully plow around the lights instead of damage them by accident.
Airport security fence repairs.
You can't see much of the fence except for when you drive along the road, but the whole airport is surrounded by fence that has FAA requirements for height and resistance to climbing. There are multiple areas where the ground has allowed the poles to frost heave, and they've come out of the ground so far that moose can get underneath them. And they didn't believe it at first until they started finding moose hair on the bottom of the fence. And so there's a lot of moose that make it in the airport now, and so it's hard to get back there, and there's quite a bit of lineal feet that needs to be repaired. So this is a request to fix that and keep the moose out better and also make FAA happy. It's very important to them that the fence is up to snuff.
Airport gate control improvements.
So we have multiple gates at the airport, and they have access controls, but those are nearing the end of their useful life. We've been needing to call technicians in quite a bit. They have to be adjusted regularly. Their key fob system's kind of outdated, and we don't have an integrated camera system that allows us to see what's going through the gate. And we also think the moose are going through there too. So That's what that upgrade is.
Airport pay station upgrades.
So right now, when you fly into the airport, if you're a visitor, we have a pay box that you stuff your transient fees into. And so the Lake Lucille Campground is going to have an electronic payment system, much like you see parking meter, installed this summer. And so this is a request to buy an identical one to put at the airport.
Runway and security cameras repairs.
So right now, we don't have any way to tell how many planes use our airport. And that's kind of a big deal when we go to the FAA and try to claim a need for an extension to the runway or to have support because of the amount of use. And we've talked with our consultants about different options for monitoring use. The issue that we have is that our users tend to be in planes that don't have a lot of transponders. They're just, GA planes, or they'll turn their transponders off. And so this is a request for some camera technology that can actually see the planes landing on the runway and help us count them. So it would allow us to have a better count of the use of our runway.
Airport markings repairs.
We did some crack sealing last year, and so a lot of the markings were obscured by the asphalt coating that we put on. This is also part of the airport improvement program, so funding for this would be used as match with FAA monies.
Airport apron improvements.
We continue to expand the apron for more airplane tie-down space, and so this funding is to continue that expansion and also use it for grant match with FAA.
Okay. We are at capital projects in the enterprise fund, Curtis Menard Memorial Sports Center.
I'll sit next to you. What?
Oh, we.
I'm done.
That's what I thought.
Leaving. I'm running.
Oh, I need moral support.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Okay. Refrigeration R22 conversion.
So I kind of touched on this earlier, so I'll just kind of recap it real quick again. We're looking at about $125,000 to go through the refrigeration system to replace R22 as a coolant. Again, it's gotten to the point where it's no longer available, it's too expensive, and if we have any significant problems, it's going to be really expensive. And we're still, even if we have a leak and we have to replace it, we still at some point need to replace that refrigerant system. So the intention is when the ice goes out next summer to be able to do that, and at that time we have two compressors that we have to operate the ice as a whole, and those have control boards and they're older, and our intention is so that if one of the control boards goes out, we don't know about it if somebody's not there. And if historically there was a time before I got there 7-8 years ago, they left on a Friday, they came back on Monday, and it was a pool. So it'd probably take 3 to 4 weeks to get a system back up, replace the stuff. So the concept here is to replace the refrigerant and upgrade the controllers so we can access it online, and or alerts and things like that can go to our maintenance specialists.
Okay. Phase 2 paving, parking lot.
Phase 2 paving, so right now the intention, or we had got funding to clear the outdoor rodeo arena area, what we term as the north lot. So the bleachers are going away, the sand goes away. It's all going to be leveled, graded, and then additionally we're going to clear cut into the trees to clear even more land for parking. And then all that will have a drainage system, lighting put in. Okay, so that's what's already been approved in the process. This then will completely pave that area. Then we will seal the whole parking lot for the whole Menard Center stripe it, and then also address one or two choke points that the fire department doesn't like. So we'll expand the driveway, which is the south end of the building, and just completely have a normal parking lot that we can accommodate the craziness that we have going on.
Building improvements.
This is just annually, we have $25,000 to address different issues as needed for the facility. So building improvements, for example, here we've listed things if we've been changing out LED to LED lighting. The arena and the turf has been completely converted, but we still have like the track, walk areas, meeting areas, and things like that. Upgrading parts of the meeting room and areas like that.
Equipment replacement.
So equipment replacement would be, again, depending on what we have going on, it's replacing either our scrubbers, those kind of items that we maintain, clean the facility. We have a lot of different pieces of equipment. So like with one of them would be our door pins for all the doors need to be replaced so that we can simplify the key system, put in a new key system, so all the magical keys that are out there to access just about anything at the Menard will no longer be useful, and items like that.
Equipment replacement, long-range plan.
So, with the patience of Joan and working through, what we want to do is just not be kind of the term Eric has even used, reactive to what's right in front of us. There's not been any medium or long-term plan to fix the facility. So what we basically have laid out here over the next 4 or 5 years is sequentially doing things like replacing the floors, parking lot repairs, the concrete work, the curbs and different things like that. We would be looking at event tables, our generator, our outdoor generator, is fenced in, but it doesn't have a roof. So during the windstorm, for example, all the snow blows off the roof and down on top of the generator area. So like the bathrooms, we had 6 feet of snow surrounding our emergency generator. So a project like that. Stackable event chairs, improving our acoustics, repainting the arenas, both of them, floor systems to cover the ice. Going forward to 27, if it's replacing the dasher boards, skins, kick plates, things like that that are original to the building, 20-some years old. We're looking at, with the use of the kitchen events, the idea of a direct access door so they don't go from the turf into the lobby, around into the kitchen, and then back around for any kind of service items like that. We're also going to be cycling through and looking at, lawnmowers and tractors and our plow trucks and sanders and all that equipment. FY28, looking to remodel the bathrooms, locker room facilities, and refreshing the landscape from a lot of the dead trees, planting new trees, items like that. And then kind of just future big concept items, again, replacing man lift that we have, forklift. We have the rail car, the schoolhouse, and the cache that have just kind of are there. There were concepts for projects previously that we just have not done anything with. I know there's some ideas about the rail car right now, but we do have concerns of doing it right, and is there really a demand to use the rail car as a stage? So we're going to kind of see how that plays out. Rooftop units, dehumidifiers, boilers, all these different things that exist at the building that we just at some point need to plan to know that we're going to have to replace some of these items.
Okay, that ends the capital projects fund. So we need a motion to come out of the committee of the whole.
Hold on. Oh, just one moment. Just a quick question for Joan. So for our 24 proposed capital projects, we've got approximately 21.5 million for capital projects. What was our number last year, or this fiscal year, I guess?
It was 3.3 million.
3.3?
So of that 21.4 million, right, 5.7 is for the grant through the EPA for sludge management. 6.6 million is relating to the Quick Connect, which is being funded through the Matanuska-Susitna Borough. The 9.1 million is what's left on the table that currently is reflected from locally funded sources. What we know that came late in the budgeting process is the news from Murkowski's office about the 2 million for stormwater management, 15 million for water, and approximately 12.8 million for sewer that will be coming. As Eric indicated, we should hear more in the September timeframe. We saw projects in here that we had planned to do locally funded that related to stormwater management. We also saw, 2 million in projects related to water, and approximately that in sewer. Good portion of that I'm anticipating could be covered under this grant that's coming. We can't guarantee that because those details haven't been relayed to us, but certainly based on what we have, the application we provided to Murkowski, we are aware that many of these projects would fit in there. And so we would, of course, manage those projects to ensure that we maximize the use of those either as a grant or as the grant match.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we need a motion to come out of the committee of the whole.
Councilman Brown, so moved.
Second?
Rubio seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to exit the committee of the whole. Is there objection? Hearing none, we are out of committee of the whole at 9:32. We are on to audience comments.
Only audience.
You have, please state your first and last name. You have 3 minutes.
Ian Crafton. I just mostly want to talk to the staff and administration here. Thank you for these presentations. As a city resident, it's so amazing to hear these presentations and hear you guys get into all of these details. I know it's a lot of work to prep all this stuff, and so I just want to say thank you again for how well thought out it is. It's super easy to understand. I was here last year for them, and sitting through that one, it was a little bit more difficult just the first time through, but how you presented this information this year was 10 times easier to understand, and I'm super excited for what the city has planned this year. I know it's not finalized, but it's in the process. And then just to the public as well, if you want to know what's happening in this city, this is the place to be right now. I know this is not the most exciting thing to sit through, but I mean, I'm weird, I enjoy numbers, so I somewhat enjoy listening to these. And again, I know these guys have hard questions, so I'm sorry for them. Answering these questions, but thank you guys.
Thank you. All right. And seeing no one else in the audience, we'll close audience comments and bring it back to the dais. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one thing, the next budget meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 15th. And you will hear about the water fund and the airport fund and any additional questions on the budget.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to the administration for the presentations. And I will not be here Monday, so I'm asking y'all to cancel the meeting.
Councilmember Rubio.
Next.
Can't even. I will be here Monday night. I'd like to ask you that if you can cancel yours, you should be here too. On a serious note, yes, this is the second budget I've been through, and the breakdown is amazing that you guys all do. It's it's hard to sit through sometimes in the sense of the questions, I get that, but sometimes it sparks. When someone asks something, it triggers something else, so I think it's amazing. All in all, very thankful. Glad you like sitting through that, Ian, and have a good night.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to say thank you to our administration. Thank you, Mayor, for your direction. And yeah, I'm just floored. 20.5 million. Sorry, it's a lot, and I just give you all so much credit, and very proud of our city and proud of all of you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor. That's it.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, administration. That was great. Yeah, I'm like Ian, budgets are kind of interesting. But yeah, the 21 million in capital projects, and I'm very thankful you're getting a project manager. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. I know you had consultants that did some project management for you, but yeah, I can't imagine that you've not had one. At MTA, we had like 4 or 5, you know, and they had a big job, but thank you, and I will be here Monday.
Hey, thank you guys for all your hard work. And I know these has been long nights, so hopefully we're over the hump. We hope. Yeah, yes, I'll be here Monday night also. So with that, we're adjourned at